It's gone to voicemail on Councillor Hunt's phone, so can't get hold.
Sorry, excuse me, Chair. Peter says the meeting's now live.
Thank you very much, councillors. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and I'm Councillor David Fuller, and I'm chair of the Planning Committee this afternoon, and I welcome everyone to this virtual Planning Committee meeting. This meeting is being broadcast to enable the press and public to view this meeting. We are meeting virtually in response to the limitations placed on the governments by the COVID-19 pandemic. Until recently, the law stated that all members had to be present in the room to make formal decisions at meetings. However, the law was amended in response to the COVID-19 emergency, and councils are able now to hold public meetings virtually. For the purpose of this meeting, and having been advised by the City Solicitor, I can confirm that the pursuit of Section 78 of the Coronavirus Act 2020, this meeting will be run by reference to amending standing orders in accordance with the local authorities' coronavirus flexibility of the local meetings, Regulation 2020 number 392. The regulations, that is, including changes to the standing orders regarding the deputations and the making of the motions. The officer will present the application, read any written deprecations received, and confirm the recommendations for debate. To facilitate this meeting, I have expressed my discretion in accordance with the consultation and suspended standing order number 41A, and I am allowing debate of items before a formal motion is made to the committee. Members are reminded to be available throughout the meeting, please, and indicate if they need to leave the proceedings at any point. Members are also requested to keep their microphones on mute, and then obviously when they need to speak, to remind yourself to speak, to put the microphone on. This will limit the amount of background noise, which can be very disruptive. Members are requested to keep their cameras turned on, please, at all times. Officers are requested to turn their cameras on only when they are presenting their reports or answering any questions from members. Members of the committee who wish to speak in the debate, please could you use the chat facility and simply write RTS, and that means request to speak, please. Please do not use the chat facility for anything else. Officers will also use the chat function to advise me, the chair, if they need to provide me or the committee with any advice. If there are technical difficulties or a need for us to take a confidential advice, we will endeavour to resolve this where necessary. We may have to have a brief adjournment, but the meeting can proceed when curate. I now explain the running order for this meeting. Members will declare any interests, receive an update on the planning matters, agree the minutes and the previous meeting, and then we determine each planning item. For each item, the planning officer will make a presentation of the application. Following their presentation, the officer will read out any written deprecations and submitted to accordance with the amount standing orders for the foreseeable future. Members will then ask questions, make comments and determine the application. So we're down to introductions. So now I would like to invite members to introduce themselves. I'll read your names out in alphabetical order. Can you please reply by stating your name and saying present, and whether you will be attending here as a full-time member or are you here as a standing deputy for a full-time member. I will pause for a few seconds between calling each member. Those who are not able to confirm that they are present will be recorded absent from this meeting. Okay then, members, so I now call upon Councillor Judith Smythe, who's my deputy. Councillor Judith Smythe, good afternoon. Sorry, could you switch your microphone on, Councillor Judith Smythe? I couldn't hear you. Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you, councillor. Sorry, can you switch it on at all? Have you unmuted yourself? It's saying it's on. Hello? Okay, we'll come back to you, Councillor Smythe. Obviously, we're having difficulties there. Just double check your end and we'll come back to you. I call upon Councillor Matthew Atkins, please. Councillor Atkins.
Councillor Matthew Atkins, present as a full-time member of the Planning Committee.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and good afternoon to you. Councillor Chris Atwell, please.
Chris Atwell, present, Chair, full-time member.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and welcome. Councillor Lee Hunt. Not here at the moment. Okay, we might go back to him in a second to see if he's here. Councillor Donna Jones, please.
Hello, Chair. Councillor Donna Jones, and I'm a full member of the Planning Committee.
And welcome again. Councillor Terry Norton, please.
Afternoon, Chair. Councillor Terry Norton, and I'm also a full member of the committee.
Thank you very much, Councillor Norton, and welcome. Councillor Lynn Stagg, please.
Councillor Lynn Stagg, full-time member of the Planning Committee, present.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Luke Stubbs, please.
Luke Stubbs, main committee member, present.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Claire Oudie, please.
Councillor Claire Oudie, present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to go back to a couple of things. Councillor Lee Hunt, has he arrived yet? No. Okay, so he may not be here. Okay, Councillor Judith Smythe, I've got to have a yes so we can hear you, I think. Is that correct, Peter? Before I can carry on with the meeting. That's a solicitor. I'm just checking for people that are outside the meeting. Peter?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so Councillor Smythe, I'm going to have to just hold back for a couple of minutes because we can't hear you, and obviously the solicitor is saying that unless we can hear you, we can't carry on with the meeting. Is that correct, Peter? Yeah. So we're going to take a couple of minutes break just to sort this technical issue out. Thank you very much.
Councillor Fuller, trying to get to IT to get hold of Councillor Smythe in the interim, okay? If not, we'll have to come back to the issue of carrying on without her being present.
Yeah, thank you very much, Peter. I'll just give her a couple of minutes if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm rather hoping it would be sorted out fairly quickly, yeah.
Sorry, Councillor Stagg, did you want to say something?
Yes, just I've tried to phone Councillor Hunt several times and it's gone to voicemail each time. I've sent him a text, so I have no idea where he is. I know he's not well because he's done his back in. He was horizontal on yesterday, yes.
Okay, so he may not be here then, Councillor Stagg, so he'll have to be marked as absent when I go round again in a minute. Okay, so we're still waiting on IT to get back to us, members, so we'll switch our microphones off in case the public can hear us.
Councillor Smythe, can you hear us? Can you hear the debate? You know, Councillor Phil, I was just thinking about you could proceed on the basis that the councillor can hear it. At the moment, we can't get a hold of IT. David.
I think our IT may have a meeting, because I know Rowley told me he was in the meeting between 2 and 3, so I don't know if that's the whole department.
David, you're on mute. Still on mute.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, David.
Sorry, I was saying if we make a start on it and we start the first application, then obviously she won't be able to vote on it. Is that correct?
Well, she can indicate a vote if she can hear it. I'm more concerned that she can't hear it. What I'd like to establish is she can hear the debate itself. At the end of the process, she could articulate a vote by putting her hand up or whatever.
Yeah, okay.
But it's really that bit. And I think you need to find out whether Councillor Smythe can actually hear any of this.
I think she can.
I think she can, but I can't see her on the screen, so she can't indicate to me.
Her, so
she'll have to.
She's still logged out, according to Ian.
Well, let's get it back in.
Yeah.
And we'll proceed on the basis
that's right.
that we're quorate and she can hear us and she can vote at the end of the process. Let's proceed on.
And I'll just make sure is her thumb up or down. Up is for agreement and down is not.
Yep.
No title.
Yeah, let's get it back in, Councillor Fuller. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Thanks.
Okay, Peter, I think we'll make a start, members, in a couple of seconds, if that's okay. We've got no Councillor Hunt, and I think they're trying to sort out Councillor Judith Smythe's microphone. Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Can all councillors come back on then? We're all here. This is a good one, this one. Mistake. Okay, Peter, shall we make a start again then? Tell me when it's live.
Yeah, we're still live now.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome back from the public. We've had a couple of difficulties at the moment. We're trying to resolve them, so if the public could just bear with us at the moment. We're trying to get hold of Councillor Judith Smythe at the moment, who has problems at home, and the IT, I know people are trying to help her as well. So let's just go back on a couple of things. Councillor Lee Hunt isn't here, so I take it that he's unavailable. So Councillor Hunt, for the record, is not with us at the moment, and Councillor Judith Smythe, I'm sure, will join us very, very soon. So I'm going to carry on with the meeting so that obviously to try and finish off as early as we can. So now, can I please ask the officers to confirm that they are present as follows. Ian Maguire, please, Assistant Director of Planning and Economic Growth.
Thank you, sir. Yes, I am present.
Thank you very much, Ian. Isa Eklaudo, I hope I've pronounced that. I'm sorry if I haven't. Head of Development and Management.
Thank you, Chair. You got it right. I'm present.
That's a good start. Well done. Okay. Gary Christie, who's the Principal Planning Officer.
Afternoon, Chair. Yes, I'm present.
Thank you very much, Gary. Good afternoon to you. Summer Shape, who's the Planning Officer, please.
Good afternoon, Chair. Yes, I'm present.
Thank you very much. We've already heard from him earlier on. Peter Balliff, who's the City Solicitor.
Hello, Councillor. Present today for the purposes of item 1. Kieran will be taking over from that when that is dealt with, as he's conflicted out. Thank you.
Yes, I've got on here to introduce him, but he's going to come in after you, so he's going to take after you, the legal advisor. Okay, and Anna Martin, please, who's a Local Democracy Officer. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, Chair. Present.
Thank you very much, Anna, and welcome as well. So the first item of the agenda is an apology. So I would ask the Local Democracy Officer to confirm whether they have received any apologies or absence for today's meeting, please.
I haven't received any, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So, members, we're going over to item number 2, which is just declarations of interest. So that completes the attendance record part of the meeting. So I'll now move on, as I said before, declarations of any members' interest. So do any members have any declarations that they would like to make? Please state both and type of interest and nature of the interest, please. Any councillor. Councillor Claire Oudie is showing a hand. Councillor Oudie, please.
Just for clarity, during planning briefing the other day, I brought up that I may have a prejudicial interest in the Marine Court thing. I've confirmed with my friends they do live down Marine Court, but not in the house that I thought they did, so I don't have a prejudicial interest in that matter.
Thank you very much, Councillor, and well noted. Any other members? Councillor Donna Jones. Yes, it's me. Yes, please.
Thank you, Chair. Mine is also, it's not actually an interest, but I think it would be prudent of me to mention it. It's also item 4, which is Marine Court, in that a friend of mine lives next door but one to the application site. And when I was at my friend's house in January or February this year, the applicant, who knows my friend, asked me to have a chat to her about the application, and I went to her home. First time I've ever met her. I know she's a member of staff who works at Portsmouth City Council as a social worker, although I don't know her on a professional level. The only time I've ever spoken to her, so I've got no personal relationship with her, but I think it was more around the fact her application had been in for quite a long period of time and she was wanting it to be brought to committee. I think at the time I may have emailed someone in planning to say when's it likely to come to committee, and that was the extent of my involvement. So neither personal nor prejudicial, but I think it would be only right of me to mention it.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jones, and that will be noted. But thank you very much, I'm sure. Thank you very much. So I now move on to agenda item number 3. This is to consider the minutes of the previous meeting, and that was held on the 22nd.
David. Sorry. I just missed a bit from the script. I've got to read out a declaration on respect of the democracy officer as follows.
Peter, sorry. Yes, Peter, please go ahead.
The local democracy officer has a non-prejudice interest in the second item on the agenda, Brewery House. She lives in the area. She has been advised that this should not interfere with her administrative functions and therefore is not a prejudicial interest. I thought I'd read that out for the purposes of clarity and the record, so Anna Martin can continue to participate in this meeting. Thank you, David.
Thank you very much, Peter, and well noted as well. Thank you so much. So I now move on to item number 3, please, and this is to consider the minutes of the previous meetings, and that was held on the 22nd of July. The recommendation is that the minutes to be approved as the correct record to be signed by me, the chair. So do I have a proposal for the recommendations, please? Anybody want to propose that meeting, please? Can anybody shout out? Yes.
Chair, is this the July meeting?
This is the 22nd of July I've got here.
Right, okay, I'd like to propose an amendment to the minutes, please.
Okay, so we need somebody to you need to say, don't you? Is that correct?
Yeah, I can
yes,
make the
please.
proposition
Yes,
if you'd
please.
like me to.
Yes, please.
I think that I know that the St James's application was obviously technically it was a tricky one because we weren't actually granting permission at that point, but more wanting to delegate authority. I think the way it's been worded, I just want to make it. I understand why it's been worded the way it has. I just want to add on one extra line, if I can, at the end of the proposed resolution from that part of the minutes, which is add on one sentence to read, the committee's support for this application was noted, because what we were actually delegating, as the minutes quite rightly say, was the Section 106 agreement, and I think it was around environmental factors. But I just want to make clear that the overarching support for the application in terms of its design and everything like that, that wasn't actually being delegated moving forward. So just that one sentence, 5 or 6 words, the committee's support for this application was noted, if that could be added on, please.
Members, everybody haven't got any too much problems with that? I certainly haven't got any problems. Peter, is that okay to add to that?
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that, Councillor.
Okay. Councillor Terry Norton, please.
Yep, happy to second that if it needs seconding.
Thank you. So we have a proposal by Councillor Donna Jones and seconded by Councillor Norton to propose the minutes with that just slight line added to it. Can we have all those in favour, please? Everybody happy with that? Yes? Thank you. Everybody's unanimous. Thank you very much. So the recommendation proposed and seconded, and we've taken a vote on that. So there's no objections to the recommendation. So thank you. The minutes of the previous meeting on 22nd have now been approved. So now I continue with agenda item number 3, which is to consider the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 12th of August. Councillor Judith Smythe, please. Hopefully we've got you back. No, we still haven't, Councillor. No, sorry, we still haven't got you back. I've been told that you... Can you hear us, Councillor Smythe, first of all? Yes. Can you raise the phone? So I understand from Peter his saying that obviously when we come to the application, you can vote with your thumb up, obviously for it or down against it, but obviously we still can't hear you at the moment. So I take it that somebody will try and get you connected, hopefully before before we get to that part. Sorry that we can't hear you.
Chair, can I just make an observation as well?
Yes.
With the exception of Councillors Stagg, Atwell and Smythe, I think that all other councillors are in the building, as are you, and I'm assuming Ian Maguire and Ezzy are with you up there as well, with the planning officers. So
yes.
We might want to take a common sense approach to maybe holding these meetings in the council chamber moving forward, because actually all of us bar 3, and those 3 people may need to be at home for, if they are high risk individuals, I don't know their personal circumstances, but the rest of us are all in the building. So thank you.
It's well noted, Councillor. If you wouldn't mind putting that in an email to me, Councillor, and
certainly I will
look
do.
into that. Yeah,
I'm just thinking
please.
Technical glitches. It just might make it easy.
Yeah. I know it's not nothing nothing going on wrongly, but no, that's fine. Just put it in an email to me, and we'll try and sort it out, because I'm all for that. So okay, Councillor Smythe, we still can't hear you. Please carry on trying to get connected. So I'm going to continue with item number 3 to consider the minutes of the previous meeting, and that was held on the 12th of August. The recommendation is that the minutes to be approved as the correct record and signed by me, the chair. So do I have a proposal for that, please, for that recommendation? Yes, Councillor Donna Jones, please. Are you happy to propose that? Yes? So I can't hear you, Councillor.
I was putting my hand up literally to just say I was happy to propose for you. That's all it was.
Thank you very much.
Second the proposal.
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, so I've got a proposal by Councillor Donna Jones and seconded by Councillor Atkins there. And so the recommendation has been proposed and seconded. I would now go to the vote. So would members please show hands if they are okay with everything? Yes. Okay, thank you very much. Nobody objections at all? No, I can't see anyone. Thank you. For the minutes of the previous meeting held on the 12th of August have therefore been approved. We're nearly there. So I will now move to the next item, which is updates of the planning applications. Ian, do you have any updates for members, please, at all?
Thank you, Chair. Eze Kelto will undertake the update for members.
Thank you very much. Eze, please.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, members. We've received 6 decisions, appeal decisions on applications that were refused by the local planning authority. 4 of these were HMOs and 2 were full applications, one being for a new dwelling and the other being for a conversion from a single unit to a 2-bedroom apartment with side dormers. We also have, members might recall, 22nd of July, I did inform members that we received appeals against the council for 6 HMOs, which we'd refused and which we've put enforcement notice on. So that they are appealing against the enforcement notices. And that is going to a planning inquiry for 6 of them. I probably need to say at this point that the decision of that planning inquiry would probably have a greater impact on decision making in terms of HMOs within the city. So just to let members know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for that. So now we're going to move on to our first application. So we're going to ask Gary Christie, who will present the first application to members here. And this is number 56 Arundel Street. So over to you, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. If you just bear with me 2 seconds, I just need to share my screen with you. Apparently that is now visible.
Yep, we can see it.
Thank you. Okay, so just before I begin, I'll just draw your attention to the supplementary matters sheet, which details a further objection from the occupier of a neighbouring property within 54 Arundel Street in terms of noise and disturbance from the use of the adjoining balconies. There is no change to the recommendation as a result of this. So this first application today relates to a plot of land to the eastern end of the pedestrianised section of Arundel Street within the city centre. You just see the site in here. Arundel Street continuing to the east, the carriageway, and changing as it moves to the south into Station Street. Lower Church Path to the rear. Commercial uses predominating to the west within the city centre and Commercial Road extending north-south down towards Portsmouth and Southsea Railway Station. To the east, more residential in character, the small church and St Edmund's School just beyond this particular slide. Just a closer view of the site, currently used by Portsmouth Shop Mobility with a series of residential blocks. To the south, the former Royal Mail sorting office, currently vacant to the south of the site. Immediately to the west, former offices that have been converted to a number of dwelling houses. The site in a closer view, you can just see the blank flank elevation of 32 to 54 Arundel Street, and please note the small projection to the north of the building containing a series of windows which serve 2 maisonettes within that projecting elements, which I will come onto a little bit later on. To the rear of the site, to the south, Lower Church Path, parking and servicing area. There's a small on-street parking area, pay and display with some disabled parking spaces and access to the site in its current form. So planning permission is sought for the construction of a 22-storey building comprising 76 dwellings, made up of 17 one-bedroom dwellings, 46 two-bedroom dwellings and 13 three-bedroom dwellings. The slide in front of you at the moment shows the ground floor layout of the building, largely taking up the extent of the shop mobility site at the moment, and then oversailing the adopted highway to the north and to the east. A small commercial unit is proposed to the northern side of the building, with its main entrance opening into the pedestrianised section at Arundel Street. To the eastern side of the building, where Arundel Street meets Station Street, you have the entrance to the residential element of the building into a central service core with access into the bicycle storage facilities, plant and refuse storage facilities to the rear of the building, serviced from Lower Church Path. At mezzanine level, at the front of the building, there's some additional seating area associated with a commercial unit with a full height space, and within the mezzanine to the rear is the bicycle storage facility for the residential element of the building, containing bike lockers, double bike lockers with a capacity of 135 bicycles. Again, from this slide, you can just see the oversailing element of the building with a series of supporting columns, and just note the projection of the adjoining building beyond. So just moving up through the building, just run through each of the floor plans. So this is now at the first residential level, and this is a typical layout from the first to the fourth floor, now occupying the full extent of the site, so oversailing the adopted highway. To the rear, a slight step in of the building from windows within the adjoining residential block. And then moving up to the fifth floor, this is where the building steps in to create a roof garden, which would not be accessible by residents, but does form part of the wind mitigation strategy, in addition to providing visual and biodiversity interest. All of the units within the building benefiting from small external spaces in the form of balconies, a typical layout around a central core. Again, you just note the stepping of the building from the adjoining property, and again the relationship of the projecting element of the adjoining building, which I mentioned earlier, and a balcony, which I will come back to. Moving up, this is the typical floor layout for the 6th to 9th floors and the 11th to 17th floors. Standard layout of one bed unit, two bed units, and a 3-bed unit, each with their own balconies. The only difference on the 10th floor is a 2-bedroom unit in this location rather than the 3, because of the inclusion of a further plant room, which you just see on the floor plans here. Up to the 18th and 19th floors, the building stepping in again from the southern elevation, an area of flat roof where it's indicated there would be a series of solar PV panels, and then moving up to the 20th floor, again the building stepping in from the front to provide a fully enclosed plant room, and then finally an open plant room at the top behind a tall parapet, which you just see on the sectional drawing here. So a series of steps in on the north and the south elevations. The proposed building is ambitious for a relatively small plot, although it is located within the city centre and within an area of opportunity for tall buildings, albeit this does not necessarily mean a building of this height. The submitted details indicate the use of brick facades, which is positive, although the final detailing is to be agreed through a series of planning conditions, which you have in your committee reports. The changes in the materials, particularly the different tones of brick, the steps in height from the front and the north and the south elevations, the projecting elements from the balcony, the oversailing and setback of the ground floor provide interest and a greater degree of articulation than perhaps we've seen in some of the other taller buildings in and around the city centre. Full height glazing along the entire eastern and northern elevations. These two elevations here just showing the western elevation of the building, the adjoining residential block with commercial uses at ground floor, and the bricks providing a more slender appearance. The northern elevation is probably the least successful of the design, and there are planning conditions proposed in your committee reports which seek further design work and details around the materials to provide greater interest and articulation. But given that the design is generally considered to be acceptable, this is an appropriate way of dealing with these final design matters. Just some context drawings just showing the building in relation to surrounding uses. You have the Unite student halls on Griffin Street to the rear, and then over here Catherine House, former Zurich building, and Crown Plaza and Angmering House just in this location here, which is a 4-storey block. Just some longer views of the proposed building from Canal Walk, looking towards the site, and from Arundel Street, from the eastern end, Holbrook Street junction, looking back and terminating the views and marking the entrance to the city centre. Again, some further longer views over the top of the former sorting office and the junction of Arundel Street, Edinburgh Road. And then some closer views from within the precinct itself and from Buckingham Street. This doesn't give you the full details of the materials, but it does give a good indication of the intention to have full height glazing on the eastern and northern sides of the building, and that interaction between the building and the public realm. Slightly unusual to have on display the cycle storage facilities, but is a good opportunity to provide an interaction and provide interest on this particular elevation with the entrance to the residential building. The intention is to continue, as seen from this drawing here, is continuing the landscaping scheme from the pedestrianised section of Arundel Street around to the building frontage, and not shown on this visual here is the addition of further planting, both from biodiversity but also wind mitigation measures. This slide just shows and indicates how the planting can be achieved at roof level and within the planters within each of the balconies. Full details of the planting, irrigation and future management of these features are sought through planning conditions. This is taken from the design access statement, just showing how the materials and maternal changes have been considered through the course of pre-application discussions, settling for the building on the left-hand side of the screen here, which the tonal changes and greater variation between the two tones, given the more slender elevation than perhaps the all darker building. And then some indication of how the hit and miss or the perforated brickwork would appear on the upper levels. So overall, it's considered that the building is of a sufficiently high design quality with some interesting elements. The proposal was presented to the Architectural and Design Review Panel, whose comments were generally positive and are included in full within the committee reports in front of you. It's considered the building is large, but is appropriate for the city centre location and would relate to the cluster of tall buildings that is beginning to emerge within this particular part of the city. In terms of residential amenity, there will inevitably be some impacts as a result of the building's height and bulk. However, these impacts are considered to be not considered to be sufficiently harmful within the city centre location to amount to reasons for refusal. The exception to this would be the relationship with the two dwellings located within the projecting element of the building, which I highlighted earlier. These were buildings, former office buildings, and the two dwellings within this particular element were carried out as permitted developments. The only light and outlook from the two units within this building, which I'll show you the internal layout in a moment, is through these high level windows. The relationship is at just 0.9 metres. The dwellings, as I say, which were carried out as permitted development, they have an extremely restricted floor space and only benefit from high-level windows, which you can just see in here. So at ground floor, there's a small kitchenette, bathroom, and then steps up to a sleeping area on the upper floor. The proposed building and the associated balconies would be positioned 0.9 metres from these windows and will result in significant harm in terms of loss of light, outlook, privacy, and creating a strong sense of enclosure. The applicant, to address this impact, proposes that the high-level windows on this elevation are blocked and new windows provided on the northern elevation to provide a greater outlook for the residents within the building, and the applicant has been in discussions with the owners of the 2 units which are included within the red line of this application. Subject to the planning conditions requiring these changes to take place before any impact occurs, so before the development extends above ground floor level, it's considered that the proposed alterations would be acceptable and overcome the local planning authority's concerns. To the south of the building, it would be located extremely close to the neighbouring windows of further dwellings that were carried out as permitted developments, but are dwellings that take sole light and outlook to the south. However, having regard to the city centre location of the site, where closer living conditions are to be expected, the continuation and pattern of the sun moving towards the west later in the day, it's considered that the wider benefits of the proposal is considered that the impact would not amount to a reason for refusal. In terms of the affordable housing provision, the applicant has indicated that the building would be in the form of a build-to-rent scheme, as defined by national policy and guidance, where the affordable housing provision would typically be in the form of affordable private rent units. The applicant is providing or is suggesting 19 affordable dwellings located between floors 1 to 5, which comprises 4 one-bed dwellings and 15 two-bedroom dwellings, amounting to 25% of the total units within the building. Just for reference, and the next item on the agenda today is the application for Brewery House on Hambrook Street. The indication is from that application that rather than providing an on-site affordable housing provision, it would be relocated and combined with the affordable housing provision at Arundel Street. So the proposal for Arundel Street itself generates a demand for 19 affordable dwellings, which is provided by the applicant, and then there would be a further 5 affordable dwellings as the off-site provision for Hambrook Street. Servicing would be to the rear on Lower Church Path, and given the absence of other options, this is considered to be the most appropriate location to service the development. There is no parking provision with the site, and the local highways authority indicating a parking shortfall in the region of 50 parking spaces. However, the site is located within a highly sustainable location in close proximity to shops, services and public transport routes. Whilst these concerns are noted in this respect, it is considered that the site is ideally located to encourage alternative modes of sustainable transport, and an objection on parking grounds rather than highway safety could not be sustained. The applicant has agreed to provide a travel plan to encourage more sustainable modes of transport and a contribution towards the set-up of a car share scheme within the surrounding area. This is just an indicative drawing, not provided by the applicant, but just an indication of how the development could appear in combination with an outline planning application currently under consideration by the local planning authority at the post office site. Illustrative purposes only, there may be some very slight variations in heights. The distance is approximately 13 metres at the lower proportion of the building, extending to 20 metres where the building steps in on its southern elevation. So overall, the scale of the proposed development is ambitious for this plot. However, it is considered to be of a good architectural quality, incorporating a number of design elements which, with the use of high quality palliative materials as suggested, and further amendments, particularly to the northern elevation, would make a positive contribution to the evolving city centre skyline. The development would provide 76 new dwellings, including an affordable housing provision contributing towards the city's identified housing need, and optimise an underused, highly accessible city centre site. It's considered that these benefits would outweigh outstanding concerns in respect of residential amenity and parking. So members, you have a detailed report in front of you, and for the reasons set out, the application comes with a recommendation of conditional permission. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Before we move on, I understand that Councillor Judith Smythe is back with us, so I just want to make sure that we can hear her. Councillor Smythe, please, would you like to introduce yourself? Would you like to switch your microphone on, Councillor Smythe, just to introduce yourself? No, obviously not at the moment, so we'll carry on then. Gary, I understand Councillor Hugh Mason wants to make a deputation. Is that correct? Is that, we have him now? Is that okay? So Councillor Hugh Mason, would you like to start your deputation, please?
Chairman, members, I'm speaking on behalf of the applicants. We are pleased with the positive recommendation made by officers and the full explanation provided in support of the proposal within the officers' report to committee. Granting consent for this scheme will allow Portsmouth City Council to deliver a high-quality focal building within the centre of the city, providing much-needed homes and regeneration to the area. The proposal for 76 units is offered on a built-to-rent basis. This is the first project of its type for private rented accommodation in the city. The building will be managed by Ravelling Housing Limited, providing a mix of private and affordable rent family homes. In total, 24 affordable rent homes will be provided to provide accommodation and the off-site affordable housing provision for the Hambrook Street development. All affordable housing units will be provided at 80% of the market rent. The remaining units proposed at Arundel Street will be available for private market rent. The location of a tall building accords with policy PCS 21, which seeks high-density living in areas which have very good public transport links. The slender and modern design provides a landmark building in the city centre, which accords with the city centre master plan and the tall buildings policy PCS 24. The building will add to the evolving city skyline, making efficient use of a limited footprint and maximising the opportunity for residential accommodation in a highly accessible location. The proposal will create a high-quality residential environment, with each dwelling meeting the national space standards, benefiting from private balconies and good natural light and outlook. The inclusion of trees on the green roof and planters on the balconies not only helps address matters of wind turbulence, but also contributes to the design being one of the greenest developments in Portsmouth. The highly sustainable, all-electric, low-carbon emission development utilises a fabric-first design, along with the use of roof-mounted solar PV, communal air source heat pumps for the heating, a hot water system, and mechanical ventilation heat recovery. Measures such as LED lighting will be installed to further improve the energy efficiency of the building, in line with policy PCS 15. The car-free scheme benefits from being in a highly accessible location within the city, which includes being within 300 metres of a railway station and bus interchange. The provision of internal bicycle storage facilities and a good pedestrian and cycle routes within the city centre will provide future residents with a range of sustainable travel options. It is reasonable to consider that future residents of the site will be aware that no on-site parking is available for their use and will, by choice, occupy the accommodation on the basis that understanding and the sustainable travel options available to them. Furthermore, the development will help the creation of an electric car club scheme on Station Street for use by local residents, thereby offering a further sustainable travel option for city residents. Additional benefits of the scheme include, first, efficient reuse of a brownfield site within a city centre location. Second, proposed commercial unit at ground floor level, which would ensure an active ground floor frontage and could potentially support a social venture cafe or similar. Third, the relocation of stop mobility service to a new facility in the Cascades car park, with increased parking and direct access to the Cascades shopping centre. Fourth, it will boost local shops through increased residential occupation. Fifth, a 2-year construction programme providing hundreds of construction jobs will be available at a time when the Portsmouth economy is in need of support. Sixth, Ravelin Housing is developing a corporate social responsibility charter and will ensure that the construction works will support apprenticeships and local labour opportunities. We note that no deputations have been made by local residents to the Planning Committee in respect of this proposal. Comments made by local residents and consultees during the course of the pre-submission consultation and in response to the planning application have been addressed in the submission, or where necessary, appropriate conditions have been recommended by officers to mitigate against potential impact. In response to the favourable report presented by officers, the planning balance applied therein, and the benefits this scheme has to offer for our city, it is respectfully asked that the application is supported today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mason. Thank you very much for that. I now want to move to questions from members, which will be directed to the planning officer. And the first person who has indicated they want to speak is Councillor Claire Oudie.
Hiya. I've got a few questions, so please brace yourself. First of all, paragraph 3.39. Please can someone explain to me, like I'm 5 years old over this paragraph, about the fact that we're offering, obviously we take the units back so we own them, I guess, but we're not going to offer social affordable rent and we're not going to take anyone from the council's waiting list. So could you explain, like, number one, why would that even count in like a 106 situation of offering up affordable development when we're not even taking people off the waiting list, and why is that possible? Because I really don't understand it. It's confusing. Thank you.
Hopefully Gary will be able to reassure you. Gary, please.
Okay, yeah, that's not a problem at all. Okay, so the form of development being proposed is build to rent, as defined by national planning policies and guidance, which supersedes a lot of the guidance that we have within our own policies. It's a form of affordable housing that we haven't seen within the city so far. And it is usually retained within a single ownership and rented to individuals. The affordable housing element would be in the form of affordable private rent, which is rented at a reduction to the open market rent for a comparable unit within the same building. In this particular instance, we're not requesting that the applicant takes individuals from the waiting list, but there will be, through the planning conditions, a requirement to set out details of the scheme of affordable housing, including details of eligibility and the selection, to ensure that the affordable units go to those that are eligible for affordable housing.
Thank you.
Councillor Claire Oudie, did you want to come back?
Yeah.
On a question?
Yeah, sure.
Question, please, not comments. Question.
Yeah, no comments. Could we amend that proposal today that they have to be taken from the waiting list?
Gary? Or should we go over to Peter on that? Gary, you happy to answer that?
Yes, that's absolutely fine.
Thank you.
That is an option available to you as members. However, the proposal in front of you at the moment is not suggesting that as a recommendation, on the basis that the provision that is being offered up by the developer is in exceedance of the requirement of 20%. So the applicant is providing 25%, and in this particular instance, it's considered that the additional affordable housing dwellings that would form part of this development outweighs any requirement to put an obligation on there that would seek the applicant to take individuals from the housing waiting list.
Councillor Claire Rudy.
Thank you. Next of all, could you, under PCS 19 about a family home, about 40% being a family home in a development, could you just define what a family home is for me, please? Is it just 2 bedrooms on somewhere?
Gary.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Policy PCS 19 refers to family dwellings. That is a dwelling comprising 3 or more bedrooms. So in this, and that is a starting point, as with all of our policies, and there will be instances where we will seek the full provision of family dwellings, but that will depend on the site location. It would depend on the type of accommodation that is being provided. In this particular instance, consider that the mix of units within the building is appropriate for this location and the intended users.
Councillor Claire Rudy.
Could you just confirm the percentage of 3-bedroom apartments in this building, please? Thank you.
Gary. Just having a look for you.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I don't have the percentage to hand. Bear with me 2 seconds, so I will just have to do that calculation for you.
Okay, no problem. We could go and ask another member if any other members.
I've got another question, sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. We can always come back to you. We just make sure that they've got the information, first of all, Councillor. Just having a look for you now, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Apologies.
Yeah, that's okay.
12 of the 76 dwellings are 3 bedrooms, so that equates to approximately 16%.
Thank you, Gary. Councillor Rudy.
Thank you for that. My other question is regarding the 106 agreement about the brewery handing over, taking, is it units to go towards their affordability? I can't remember it, or the other way around. Could you just confirm to me, would a private developer get away with doing this if they're offering different sites and then mix and matching and not even hitting the 30% level that we're asking for either? Or is it just because it's ravelling?
Gary, did you want to answer that?
Chairman, I'll cover that for you. Thank you.
Yes, please.
Yes, we confirm, like all planning decisions, it is irrelevant who the applicant is, so the same judgment would be applied. We are satisfied both the Arundel Street scheme that you're looking at now, and indeed, I won't obviously prejudge the presentation you'll receive shortly, the Hambrook scheme, are compliant with policy and capable of meeting their own affordable housing need. It is, however, always open to developers where they can reach agreement either over more than one of their own sites or even with third parties over multiple sites to transfer affordable housing from one site to another. It is recognised in our guidance, however, that this is sequentially less preferable, which is why we do seek an uplift where a developer isn't providing on-site provision, and in this case the uplift comes in the form of the additional unit beyond that which they would have provided directly on Hambrook. Would, however, stress the importance to note that you are judging only the Arundel Street application at this time. It has the capability of receiving off-sited affordable housing from other issues, but it is not a requirement to make this scheme acceptable. We believe it is acceptable in and of its own right, and its affordable housing requirement will be met entirely on-site. Clearly, whether that's acceptable for Hambrook will be a judgment you may wish to consider as part of your determination of that application later on in this meeting.
Thank you, Ian, for clarifying that. Councillor Claire Rudy, did you want to come back or ask another question?
I apologise to members.
No, it's not at all.
Another thing, so a few years ago in council, before I was councillor, I actually gave a deputation on this about having independent scrutiny of affordability assessments. Does it count in this case? Because obviously we're borrowing the money to build this building, but is there an independent affordability assessment regarding the 106 agreement about how much profit the building is due to make and why we are maybe kind of sidestepping our obligations as a developer?
Ian, did you want to come back to Councillor Udy there?
Yeah, certainly. I would say no obligations are being sidestepped as a developer in the Arundel Street scheme. It is we're satisfied entirely compliant with all policy, certainly affordable housing policy. Consequently, there has been no development appraisal for viability submitted as part of this scheme. It doesn't need to be. That's only required where they've been unable to fund a policy requirement for the scheme. So that doesn't form part of the planning judgment and planning balance that members are being asked to look at today. As I said, they are meeting their full affordable housing criteria. In fact, they propose to exceed it within the Arundel Street scheme itself, notwithstanding the addition of further units that they may or may not receive from Hambrook, depending obviously on the resolution of this committee and the further associated work.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Udy, did you want to come back with another question?
I think that's me done. Thank you very much. Cheers.
Thank you, Councillor. If you do think of another one, just please let us know. Councillor Matthew Atkins is next, but can I just, before I come to you, Councillor, can I just check with Councillor Judith Smythe that she can hear us again? So, Councillor Judith Smythe, can you hear us again? Can we do another test? Councillor Smythe, can you talk to us? No, not at the moment. Okay, so I'm going to move on to Councillor Matthew Atkins, please. Councillor Atkins, please.
Thank you. A couple of sensible questions and
no
one
problem.
fairly silly one. I think Ian actually addressed this point, but just to make sure it's clearly understood, if we approve this application, it would have no effect on it later if we later refuse the Hambrook House application, would it? This would still have permission, just without the opportunity to get more affordable units from Hambrook. From the pub, the pub application.
Ian, would you like to answer that one?
Yes, from Hambrook, the brewery site. Yes, this is a standalone application for Arundel Street. It stands or falls on its own merits, and obviously it's compliance with policy as laid out in the report.
Councillor Atkins, did you want to ask a further question, please?
Yeah, it mentions in the report that there were some fairly substantial recommendations from the fire authority about fire safety in this building. It was suggested that I think that these weren't part of the planning regulations and weren't necessarily something we could put in as conditions as the planning committee, but has the applicant responded or commented on what they might do in response to those quite stringent recommendations from the fire authority?
Ian, did you want to? Okay, Gary wants to answer that question. Gary, did you want to answer that question?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Yes, we have received full comments from Hampshire Fire and Rescue Service. They are available to the applicant. Not included within your committee report, there are a series of informatives which draw the applicant's attention to the requirements and the guidance and the advice received from Hampshire Fire and Rescue, and those details are available, which will be incorporated into the design as part of the detailed construction design work, but generally matters that are dealt with through building regulations.
Thank you. Sorry,
Thank you.
Councillor Atkins, did you want to come back to that?
I just wanted to draw attention to that, so that as this is a city council building, it is important that we meet our safety obligations if we proceed with the building. And then finally, and this is perhaps my silly question, given their recent media attention to peregrine falcons nesting in tall buildings in the city, is anything being done in the biodiversity of this building to encourage further nesting by this sort of most rare and protected bird in the country?
Yes, there is a planning condition seeking to enhance biodiversity value at the site. That's achieved through the additional planting at various levels and within the balconies, but also with the ecological report that was submitted. There's also a series of recommendations, not in relation to falcons, but certainly in relation to bats and nesting birds, that there are bird and bat boxes within their recommendations and can be incorporated at the various flat roof levels.
Councillor Atkins, any more questions, Councillor? Thank you very much. Good question there, actually. We've got Councillor Terry Norton, please. Would you like to ask a question to Gary or Ian, please? Or Gary is the first one. Councillor Norton, please.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just two very brief questions, hopefully for me. The first one is around the garden area. Can officers confirm the justification for residents not having access to the garden area?
Okay. Gary, did you want to answer that one?
Okay. So, yes, it's not proposed that the garden area is available for members of the public. We did discuss, if you bear with me 2 seconds, I will try and move back to the presentation slides just so that's available for you. So this serves a number of purposes. It's one to add to the biodiversity value of the building, but also forms part of the wind mitigation strategy to ensure that there are comfortable wind levels around the base of the building. So the hasn't been an assessment of what the quality of the environment would be on that particular terrace itself and whether it's appropriate as an external amenity space. But also there is the relationship with the bedrooms, the communal living areas within the flats themselves. And there would have been need for some defendable spaces within there. And the applicant has proposed that this is not accessible by the residents of the building and has been considered on that basis. And given the private amenity space provided through the balconies, this is considered to be an appropriate solution.
Councillor Norton, did you want to ask another question?
Yeah, just a second one.
Yes,
very
no
quickly.
problem.
Please, do we have any idea of the building that is 0.9?
Judith Smythe entering by telephone.
Sorry,
please admit me.
Councillor Smythe coming in.
Yeah, we've got Councillor Smythe coming in. So sorry about that, Councillor Norton.
Is now joining.
Right. Councillor Judith Smythe. Sorry, Councillor Norton, to stop you in mid-flow.
No
Councillor Judith Smythe, can you hear us now, please?
I've always been able to hear you, Chair.
Yes.
Can you hear me?
We can hear you loud and clear. We couldn't hear you, that was all. Thank goodness, and welcome. I know that you've been following the debate all the way through, so so in that case, you obviously can vote on it later on in the debate. Thank you very much, and also just to
say to the public that I'm not on the phone, I'm on the conference.
Yeah, thank you very much. And just to let everybody know that I had a message from Councillor Lee Hunt. Councillor Stagg sent me a message saying that his laptop isn't working, but he's trying to get into the meeting. So can IT, obviously, and Democratic Services try and sort that out? And I'm sure Councillor Hunt will be able to join us, but obviously he won't be able to vote on this application. So with that, we're going back to Councillor Terry Norton. Councillor Norton, please, to ask your next question, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. On that, I mean, more justification for us being meeting in person, I guess. But on this application, the building that is 0.9 metres away, we mentioned that the intention is to move the windows from the side of the building to the front of the building. Do we have any indication on the disruption that will cause and the time that might take for the residents in the neighbouring building, if agreed?
Gary, did you want to answer that one?
So the local planning authority is aware that these discussions have already taken place, and part of the local planning authority's visit and site visit was accompanying two of the surveyors to those two buildings to look at the works that could take place. Yes, there will be a degree of disruption for the residents within the building. I can't give you a timescale of how long that would take, but it's considered that the measures proposed in terms of blocking the high-level windows and providing larger windows on the northern elevation, which should actually give an outlook down into the street, which residents don't have at the moment, is adequate mitigation. It would improve the living conditions of those particular residential units, as well as allowing the optimal use of the adjoining site next to it.
Great.
Councillor Norton, did you want to answer? Fine. Okay, thank you very much. Councillor Judith Smythe, did you want to ask a question at this time? Because just to give you a chance to answer a question to the officer.
Thank you, Chair. Can you hear me?
Just about, you're a little bit faint, to be honest. Can you speak up?
Thank you very much, Chair.
Yes.
I don't need to ask a question because Councillor Udy asked the questions that I wanted to ask and they were answered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So just to make sure, does any other councillors want to ask any more questions? Could they please let me know before we move over to comments, please? Councillor Atwell, sorry, Councillor Atwell, just missed you there. Councillor Atwell, please, a question, please, to Gary, please.
Thank you, Chair. My question is about 5.29. The applicant has insisted that the planters are an integral feature of the building's concept and design. How will they be appropriately managed and maintained? Otherwise, I can see 22 stories of things that are supposed to look nice and green and attractive that aren't.
Gary, do you want to answer that one, please?
Yes, that's absolutely fine, and your concerns were shared with the local planning authority when the application was first submitted. So through the course of the application, we've sought assurances on this element, and they've said, well, if they are going to form an integral part of the building, you need to give us the assurances in terms of the materials, in terms of the irrigation and the management of those. And rather than seeking to amend the design, the applicant has confirmed their intention to push ahead with the greening of the building towards its sustainable merits. What we have got is a very detailed planning condition requiring a management strategy, an irrigation strategy for these so they can be maintained. One of the benefits of the building remaining within a single ownership is that these elements can be managed by the owner of the building, and it would not just then fall to the individual owners of those particular units. But we think that even if those elements did fail, that the building is of sufficient quality, but we have got that condition on there as it is something that the applicant is telling us is an integral feature of the design.
Councillor Atwell, did you want to ask another question at all?
Yes, so just so I understand it, so people would have to go through the flats to maintain it if necessary?
In terms of the irrigation, that can be done remotely. The full details of how this would be maintained, the type of planting, that's all going to be dealt with through the planning conditions. But we've seen it achieved on other buildings. Some precedent images have been given to us. So there is a degree of that, and the residents of the building will be aware that that is a feature of their rental unit.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. We've got Councillor Claire Rudy, who's, I think, has come in for another question. Councillor Claire Rudy, please.
Sorry. I was trying to look at the plans, but could you just tell me if there's a communal space, as in like a community room in this building, please?
Gary, would you like to look at the plans for Councillor Rudy and let her know?
I can confirm there is no communal area other than the entrance lobby and the bicycle storage area.
Councillor Rudy, did you want to say anything else?
No,
on the question?
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Members, I take it there's nobody else that wishes to ask any more questions. Councillor Judith-Smart, just to make sure you're quite happy for us to go on to comments now. Okay, so we now move on to members' comments, please, on the application. Councillor Luke Stubbs, please, comments, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I mean, there's quite a bit to say about this application, really, and it really splits into two different things. One is the planning issues to do with the appearance and scale of the building and so on, and then the other, which isn't planning, but I think it's relevant to say in a public meeting, is about some of the perhaps what the economics of this scheme are. So, in terms of the building and application we've got before us, I mean, I think it's pretty good, actually. I have long been in favour of concentrating more development in the centre of the city and for high-rise development, and it's certainly something which the council collectively has pursued over recent years. Has been the development of a large amount of high-rise student accommodation in the central area. And while I know this is a view which is not uniformly shared amongst the people of Portsmouth, but I personally think that it has contributed to an uplift of the area, and it has contributed to the vitality of the area. And I know the city centre's sliding a bit, but my contention is that would be worse still if that development hadn't taken place. And I think we've got in front of us a scheme which, in terms of the appearance, is pretty good, actually, and it would help to define the city centre. We're talking about a location which is really, it's a first sight in the city centre when you're entering from Arundel Street, which after all is one of the main roads in, and to have a building which creates some presence and defines the boundary for the city there, it has to be welcome. Certainly something I would very much support. So from a planning perspective, I absolutely support the proposal, and I'm happy to propose it. I just want to make a few comments about some of the costs in this, because this is a piece of land I'm very familiar with. Back before control of the council changed in the middle of 2018, I'd been involved. We were looking at options for this site through 2017, 2018. Obviously, we never got to the point of a specific proposal, but we were working on a number of things, and I was aware of all of the costings and so forth that were involved in that. As these were for buildings that were significantly smaller, and you know the numbers of flats varied, but it was between about 24 and 32, I think, if I remember rightly, for the different options, with a building height of about, again, I mean, it was in the order of about 8 to 10 stories that was being looked at, and there was a number of ways of getting that. And the cost of those, and the cost per unit we had, was £180,000 to build. And these were mostly two-bed, £180,000 to build. And that was a break even. I mean, there was no real profit in that, but the purpose of doing it would have been for regeneration, and also because the hope was to get the ground floor as to be used as a commercial space. Really what we had in mind at that time was a back office facility for the Hive and for organisations like that. So that was the intention of it. So 180,000 per unit was the break-even cost at that time. Now we're talking about a scheme where if you take the total cost of construction divided by the number of units, it's £300,000. £300,000 is an awful lot more than 180,000. Now, of course, why is that? Well, partly tall buildings have always cost more to build, and that gap has widened post-Grenfell. And all of the extra things you have to include there has gone and driven up the cost. So, it is going to be expensive to build. That's why the only tall buildings that have been built are student rooms, because student rooms, you can get an awful lot of them in, and you can charge quite high rents for them. But it's never been economic to build general purpose housing in Portsmouth. The land values haven't been high enough. And when you think that the interest payment on a loan from the Public Works Loan Board is about 3%. So if you were doing this on the never, so you'd never actually own the building, you just borrow money and then you borrow more money and you borrow more money and you keep rolling over the principal of the debt, then you're still looking at needing about £15,000 per flat per year to break even, and that's without the maintenance costs as well. Now, all right, so the value of money declines over time, and that's not quite the right number either. But I mean, I think I make the point that I'm sceptical about whether this is break even. As I said, we did an analysis back 3 years ago, and 180,000 was break even. So I'm worried that if these actually do cost 300,000 to build, particularly now when you're looking at potentially a lot of volatility in the property market, we might be, and it hasn't happened yet, like I personally think it must do, a drop in house prices, then it is. I have some significant concerns about that. Now, I have taken the opportunity to speak to officers about this, but obviously I don't get the full case on it. But I left, I have discussed this, and I felt sceptical still after my discussion. I just wanted to say that while this is, as a regeneration thing, it's very good, it's excellent. I very much welcome that aspect of it, and that the cost to the council is a serious issue. And when we've had to go back to Councillor Udi earlier on talking about the profitability of the scheme, and is the council making too much money out of this? No, it isn't. It absolutely isn't. And so I personally also wouldn't support making any changes to make the affordable housing obligations even more onerous, when, as I said, there's considerable doubts about how viable this scheme is at all. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Stubbs. So you're proposing to go with the officer's recommendations. Obviously, we need a seconder. The next person to talk is Councillor Matthew Atkins. Councillor Atkins, please.
Yeah, I'm happy to second Councillor Stubbs' recommendation, and really just to echo everything he said. I do have one or two planning concerns about this myself. I don't like that the Portsmouth City Council is putting forward quite a lot of applications with no parking provision. I think in this location, again, and given the desirability of going up in the city centre, as in building upwards for regeneration purposes, from a planning point of view, I think this is a sensible building and would be a desirable one in the city centre. Like Councillor Stubbs, though, looking at the numbers, given this is going to be a private project where the council borrows money and then lends it out again to a private company that the council has a strong interest in its success, I think the numbers need to be looked at extremely carefully because this could become a huge debt burden around the neck of the council if the numbers actually don't add up. Particularly as we move forward into what will probably be a difficult financial period for councils nationwide anyway. And going towards the social housing point as well, I mean, I think this is why it doesn't have quite the level of social housing we might want and why it's not drawing from the council's waiting list, because it's being put through as a private, supposedly profit-making development. So it's a different funding source to building social housing. So it needs to make sense as a commercial case for the council to proceed with it, but that is not a planning consideration. From a planning point of view, I think the building is a sensible one for the city centre, so I'm happy to second Councillor Stubbs' proposal.
Thank you very much, Councillor Atkins. Councillor Terry Norton, you've indicated you'd like to do a comment, please. Councillor Terry Norton, please.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's been made quite clear, hasn't it, that an objection on parking grounds would likely be rejected. But I do think it's disappointing, given that parking is the #1 issue for many residents across the city. That yet again we see a Portsmouth City Council application, this one for 74 dwellings without a single parking space. Also the suggestion here that over 200 people will be asked to car share, I think is vaguely insulting, especially considering it doesn't even allocate 20% of relevant spaces for the location there or the number of buildings there. However, it is promising, I think, to hear about the electric car scheme and the fact that this location is close to local transport, the rail networks, cycle schemes, etc. So I do have to appreciate the ambition. I don't think in reality that will be the case. I think many people will own cars and park somewhere else, adding to the parking problem. But we'll have to have ambition there somewhere. Secondly, the garden. I think it's a shame that there's a garden space there that is not going to be used by the residents of that building. But in balance, I think the scheme looks like a pretty good one, and I probably would lean towards supporting this despite those two concerns.
Thank you very much, Councillor Norton. Councillor Claire Oudie, please, for a comment, please.
Thank you. Quite frankly, I'm quite minded to refuse this application, but I'm probably not going to. Mainly for the fact that we don't have a mixture of family homes, but we know this is regeneration and this is probably more built for commuter homes. Whilst I'm happy that there really isn't any provision for parking at this point, because we are the closest to the train station that you could get that has links to commuter areas and an bus travel network. I think if you're this kind of regeneration is kind of attracting kind of a nouveau riche kind of situation where you've got graduates that need a good place to have just a good place that they can commute from, where it's still relatively cheap to live in, and that's probably what you're going to offer here. So that's probably why I wouldn't refuse it, on the fact that we just don't have enough family dwellings on it, because I just don't really think you're going to have families moving in here. That being said, I would like to amend the recommendation to allow people on the waiting list to be able to move into this house. We can't hark on as a council, and I know this is a kind of private developer because it's rather thin, but it's still part of the council, as it were. We can't hark on about the need for people to have housing and not take people off the housing list. And to be honest, you don't want to take people off the housing list, because if you're high priority and you're going to have 1 or 2 bedrooms, and I think it's disgraceful you're not even offering a 3-bedroom offer in this, not even one flat in this. You're only offering 1 and 2 bedroom, and you're more than likely, especially in a 1-bedroom situation, a high priority person coming off the waiting list is someone that maybe coming out of a secure unit for serious mental health problems or as addiction issues, they are naturally high priority and have to have a duty to be housed by the council, obviously, if they live in the area, and also subject to conditions. I think the council may be sidestepping that so they don't have any riffraff living in the block, quite frankly. So I'd like to amend, because I think it has to be a right for people that are on the waiting list that can afford these units, even affordable rents, to move in, basically. I echo, and I'm not done. I'll echo Councillor Norton's concerns about the garden space. Whilst I'm very much up for garden space, I'm very much up for cities in the sky. You know, I love a historical council estate, and I love brutalism at its finest. And I know it's no Barbican conservatory, but high rises for me are like, especially if you're building one from scratch, it's like you're building a brand new community and you need that cohesion between residents. You're not offering a communal space for people to come to and to share activities with or whatnot. You're just literally building to rent, and you're just going to have people that won't even communicate with each other in the hallways. You're going to get nodding and just not even, someone's still got their mic on, by the way, and you're not going to communicate with other residents. And having a garden is another communal space that you could have, that residents could work on as a community, and have a glorious garden that is maintained by the residents. And having a communal space would lead to the creation of a residents' association. So we've got a soulless high-rise going up in the centre of town, which I don't really think that we'd have grounds for refusal for, which is a great shame. But I would like to make that amendment. I'd like to ask for help on the legal side of doing it, because I'm looking at the affordable housing. What was it, number 19? If I could have that help, please, yeah. I'd appreciate it.
So, sorry, Councillor, before we ask for that, because obviously if you're going to put something on the table, you need somebody to second that. Ian, could you just sort of clarify or just answer yes. Councillor Udi's concerns before we go down that road, if at all possible?
Yes, I just wanted to take the opportunity, members, to provide some further guidance, because this matter is specifically addressed in the National Planning Policy Guidance Statements, the online policy guidance that we utilise in the section on build to rent. And if you will indulge me, I will read 2 short paragraphs on this issue. This is under the heading of how is eligibility to occupy private affordable rented homes determined. So this states that eligibility should be determined with regard to local household income levels related to local rent levels. Where authorities maintain an intermediate housing list, they may wish to suggest names from this, or potentially even their statutory housing list, taking into account the affordability of the homes to those on that list. Authorities should refrain from having direct nomination rights from their housing list. That sentence there, I think, is obviously very key to the suggestion. In the absence of an established local intermediate housing list, developers and authorities may consider assembling a unique data set for the development. In so doing, they would have regard to the local authority housing allocation policy and any relevant potential candidates from the statutory housing list. They should also ideally include evidence from people's local residence or employment connections. The reason I wanted to read those things out was to highlight the national guidance on build to rent is clear that we should refrain from having direct nominations rights from the housing list, and to highlight the opportunity that the authority has, which condition 19 gives us, to agree through, in this case, a scheme under a planning condition, could alternatively could be a Section 106 agreement, exactly how we will look at that occupancy issue. That does give us a degree of flexibility, and we'll be using this guidance to put that in, whether a unique data set would be created, but in any case we would be doing that with having regard to the local housing authority's allocation policies and relevant potential candidates from the statutory housing list. So I just wanted to reassure members that while you are advised you should refrain from direct nominations from the housing list, the scheme that condition 19 requires will be required to have regard to the policies and the potential candidates that do exist on our housing list, if that at all assists and reassures members in respect of the scope and intention of condition 19.
Thank you, Ian. Councillor Udi, did you just want to clarify just something on that point, or can we move on?
Thank you. Yeah, I guess that I'm not able to seek an amendment at this point, so I'll my right to speak. I might come back a bit later. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Udy, and that obviously is your choice. Can I move on to comments then from Councillor Donna Jones, please? Councillor Donna Jones. Can't hear you, Councillor. You're on mute. Councillor Donna Jones. Can you hear me now? Yes, we can.
Okay,
Loud
sorry, I think I was overzealous when I pushed the button twice. Anyway, so thank you very much, Chair. My comments around this are really in two parts. The first one is around my concerns around affordability, which I appreciate is not a specific planning concern, but it does follow on from the points that both Councillor Udy and actually Councillor Luke Stubbs have made. And as we have Councillor Hugh Mason, the portfolio holder, who's made a deputation and I'm assuming is still with us listening to this debate, I think it's relevant. And then it's my second part of my comments today, Chair, will be around the application itself. I mean, I do have a concern around this particular development. I know that when I looked at the business case last year, and it was in its early stages at that point, it wasn't a signed off business case, but the build costs started at 280,000 per unit, rising I think in the end to around 350. And we know that 1-bedroom and 2-bedroom flats in that area around sort of off of Arundel Street go for between 120 to 160 if they were a large 2 or 3 bed. So in terms of the financial viability, this is a serious question that the administration and in particular the portfolio holder, need to be assured with before they give sign off to Ravlin. And looking at the Ravlin Housing Limited, there's only one director of that company at the moment on behalf of the City Council, and that's Tom Southall. Now, the Ravlin Group Limited currently has Wayne Layton and Tristan Samuels and I think Julian Pike. But, when we set Ravlin up, the holding company, the parent company, when the Conservatives were the administration, we actually took a decision to put David Tompkins, one of our councillors, onto the committee. And I think it's, as a councillor, I just make a point that I think we should have councillor representation both on the housing company and on the parent company. Moving aside from viability, which, as I say, is a big question mark for me about whether or not this is even financially prudent and in any way sensible to build, moving on to the planning points. I actually like this. I think it's a good use of a poor area. This is a part of Portsmouth, particularly the town centre, which has been run down for quite some time. Even when Commercial Road was much more plausible, Arundel Street's been tired for most of my adult life, and this really is a great opportunity, I think, to develop a part of the city centre which is going to have a significant positive impact, I believe, on the high street itself. We know our high streets are really struggling, and I know that when I was leader of the council, I was specifically working with Claire Upton Brown, as it was then, to really push the planning policy team to make sure that they amended the SPD for the high streets, in particular Commercial Road, which I think were limited to a development of 4 or 5 stories to make it, not uncapping it in terms of its height, but certainly increasing particularly people like Unilever, large pension funds that own a number of the shops along the high street, to actually for us to encourage through our local plan and through that particular SPD for Commercial Road to encourage height and development on top of the ancillary storage, or if there are any residential flats, just 1 story or maybe 2 stories above each of the shops there. Because by having 2,000 or 3,000 more people living in the Commercial Road area, if they were all living above the shops along the high street, what you would have is people going and buying their newspaper, getting their, their groceries, getting their optician, their dentist, whatever. And that would make the high street so much more viable, and it makes all the other shops there, the ancillary shops there, therefore more viable as well, because the footfall will increase. So for me, having more people, thousands more people living in the city centre, particularly on strong commuter routes where there is both bus and train, accessibility, is absolutely key for good quality, high quality, sustainable urban living. I quite like the look of this building. This is not a high value site, so you're not going to get, flashy glass reflective buildings. I think the architects have done a good job with the brief I'm sure that they were given. And I think that the mix of the accommodation also looks quite sensible. Slightly disappointing there's no garden space for them, but listen, that's been explained through the wind tunnel stuff and what needs to happen from an ecology perspective. So in terms of the principle of development, I'm happy with that. In terms of the design, the scale, the appearance, and also its it's quite useful that the planning officer showed this in conjunction to what's proposed on the post office site, because had he not have done that, you know what we would have said when the post office site came forward? Oh, it would have been good to have known that this was happening. So well done to Gary for preempting that one. So it was useful to see the scale of those two buildings together. I think the standard of accommodation, as I said, is quite good. The impact on residential amenity, well, you know, there is no direct residential amenity right there anyway in that part of Arundel Street, but this is simply, from my perspective, it's going to improve and add to that residential amenity and certainly not be a negative to it. In terms of affordable housing, I think there's some really good points to be made. I think Councillor Udy's asked some good questions today so that we all fully understand what the council's position is, in particular the directors of Ravelin, if they do bring this scheme forward. And people may remember in 2015 me talking about how Portsmouth was going to become a much taller city over the next 20 or so years, because we can't develop out, therefore we have to go up, because we are a very small physical urban centre in Portsmouth, and I talked about that New York skyline, which people maybe took slightly out of context, but this is one of the key developments in the city centre that has happened since I made that statement. We've had the new student accommodation, we've had the redevelopment of Catherine House, you know, the former Zurich building, and there are several tall buildings now going up around Station Square, which is what we always envisaged. So I have to say, having looked at the conditions in the planning officer's recommendation, I think it's a good report, and I'm happy to propose the officer's recommendation.
Thank you for that. We've already got a proposal which was Councillor Luke Stubbs and seconded by Councillor Atkins, Councillor Donna Jones. So, but thank you for that. Councillor Lynn Stagg, please.
Sorry, I obviously wasn't listening.
That's okay, I was. Councillor Lynn Stagg.
Thank you, Chair. I don't have any problem with the no parking. There simply isn't the room to have any parking, and especially if you've got 76 apartments. And there are too many vehicles on the roads in Portsmouth as it is. So as Councillor Jones has said, you know, it's right in the centre. You've got the train station, you've got bus hubs, so plenty of public transport. And I love the idea of having an e-car club. Because that is so environmentally friendly. A lot of the environmental stuff I'm really in favour of. The solar panels, the heat pumps, the trees, because as well as stopping the wind, they also absorb, of course, particulates and take in on board particulates and NO2. So I think that's really good. I like the appearance. I like high-rise buildings myself. I mean, you've only got to go to somewhere like Hong Kong and you find practically everything is high-rise. Really is it, because like us, they're on an island and there's nowhere else to go. One of my sons taught English in university in Harbin in northeast China for several years. Population of 4 million. There wasn't a single-storey house anywhere. They were all high-rise and they're all multi-high-rise. But I like the appearance of it. I like what looks like the quality of it. I think it's really good. The cost and the viability is a bit concerning, as is the no social housing. But you can't have everything. You know, I mean, I don't think anybody would build anything in the city or anywhere else with a limited budget and satisfy everybody. It's just not going to happen. But I agree with Claire about the no communal space or the lack of communal space and no access to the garden. A great opportunity lost, I think, because with a garden, yeah, you can put in the trees, but have the residents looking after it, because then they have ownership and they take pride in it. So that I think is a bit of a concern. I'm a bit concerned about the cycle storage. I hope it's not going to remain painted acid yellow, because I hate that the multi-storey blocks by the station, which are acid yellow and a sort of obnoxious green. I don't know what you call it. But there's an opportunity for some artwork. We have a university, we have an art department that has some artwork on there. It would look really good. But overall, I'm in favour. So thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd just like to add a couple of comments. First of all, I think it's good that there's been no objection to this application from anyone, and I think Councillor Hugh Mason spoke very highly, as did all of us today, this afternoon, before we take the vote. But I thought Councillor Hugh Mason spoke very good, and yes, obviously I had my reservations, but listening to the officers that put it well and truly spelled it out for us. I think you know where I'm going to go to in a minute. But Councillor Judith Smythe, did you want to say anything on any comments before we go to the vote at all?
No, unusually for me, I'm satisfied with the design. I do think we need to build up in the city centre, and I do think we have to try and limit the number of cars in Portsmouth. So overall, I'm also worried about the viability, but there may be other opportunities for us to look at that as a separate decision making. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. So you did have something to say there, and well said. Thank you very much. So, okay, then, members. So there's no more comments at the moment. So I think we're going to vote on this, and the officers. So the first thing that's put in front of me is the officers' recommendation for approval. So we have a motion on the table proposed by Councillor Luke Stubbs that we grant planning permission in accordance with the officers' recommendations, but I don't think there is any, subject to amendment to this supplementary sheet. The motion was seconded by Councillor Atkins. I would just like to check if the planning officer has any additional comments before we go to the vote. Anybody at all? No? Okay, so we're okay. We're all clear so far. So, could the proposer and seconder confirm that they're more than happy with everything? Yeah, no problem at all. So I will now go to the vote. I will ask each member to turn, if they could, voting for or against the motion, or if they wish to abstain. So they're either voting for or against the motion, or you wish to abstain. Please indicate against or abstain. Just want to make that clear. So I now call upon Councillor Judith Smythe. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
Chair, thank you. I'm for.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. I now call upon Councillor Matthew Atkins. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain, Councillor?
For the motion, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now call upon Councillor Atwell. Please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For the motion, Chair.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon Councillor Donna Jones. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
I'm for the motion.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I call upon Councillor Terry Norton. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
Yes, thank you, Chair. On balance, I am for the application.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I call upon Councillor Lynn Stagg. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For, Chair.
Thank you very much. I now call upon Councillor Luke Stubbs. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Thank you very much. Councillor Claire Oudie, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
I'm against the motion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. I now call upon myself, Councillor David Fuller, and I'm for the motion in front of us. I'd ask I'd ask Democratic Services just to count the votes up, and I think I know which way it's going to go. So, just for clarity, could you please let us know how it went, please?
I've got 8 for, that's including you, Chair, and 1 against.
Okay, so I declare that's actually been carried. So thank you very much, members. That has been carried. Thank you for that. It's a long debate there, but thank you for that. It needed it. So I'm now going to move on to the next application. The planning officer, Gary Christie, will now present the second application, and this is the Brewery House 18 to number 20 Hambrook Street. Sorry, but before I do that, I just want to say that Councillor Lee Hunt has sorted out some problems with the computer. So, Councillor Hunt, can you just say hello and welcome to our meeting?
Yes, Councillor Lee Hunt. Sorry, I'm a bit late, everybody. So, IT problems.
Yeah, thank you very much, Councillor Hunt, and it's great to have you back. So I'm going to go over now to Gary Christie, who will present the second application. That's the Brewery House, number 18 to 20 Hambrook Street. Over to you, Gary.
Thank you, Chair. If you just bear with me 2 seconds while I share my presentation with you. Right, I think you have that available. Okay, thank you. Just again, If I may draw your attention to the supplementary matters sheet, which just details a very slight amendment to condition 2. It doesn't change the recommendation otherwise. So this second application relates to, bear with me 2 seconds, let me get the point to it, relates to Brewery House, a former bottling plant associated with Long's Brewery, which was situated just to the south of the site. The site is bounded by Hambrook Street to the south, by Copper and Stone Street to the north, Little Hambrook Street, and a narrow footpath that extends between the adjoining building. Just some site photographs here. The building in its context. You have the footpath around parts of it and the highway, small blocks of flats within verdant grounds, a retirement home or sheltered housing development just to the east, Borough House, which is a 5-storey student hall to residents, and a 2-storey teaching block associated with Portsmouth High School. Just some photographs showing the development and the 100% site coverage. The building is entered on the City Council's list of buildings of special architectural or historic interest, and is also located within the Castle Road Conservation Area. However, as you can see from a number of the images here, the building has now remained vacant for a number of years following the relocation of various community groups, and has started to fall into a fairly poor state of repair in certain places. So the proposal is for the enlargement and conversion of the building to form 17 dwellings, comprising 4 one-bed dwellings and 13 two-bedroom. The 2 images you have on the screen in front of you at the moment is for the basement level, which doesn't include any habitable accommodation, but provides a series of storage units for each of the dwellings, increasing their internal floor space effectively and providing bicycle storage facilities. On the right hand side is the upper ground floor, which is located approximately 1 metre above street level, comprising 5 dwellings, accessed from a dual staircase on the front of the building and its main entrance from the pedestrian footpath to the east. This is the first and second floor, 6 dwellings per storey. All of the dwellings complying with the requirements of the nationally described space standards, and would all provide an acceptable standard of living environment for future occupiers. Externally, much of the building facades would be retained and sensitively repaired, including the installation of new timber sliding sash windows. The most significant change would be the replacement of the non-original bay windows to the southern elevation of the building with a more contemporary splayed feature that would relate to the alterations proposed at roof level. The roof would comprise a series of alternating roof pitches, which would be finished in dark grey profiled metal cladding. The valleys and the ridges designed to align with the existing features of the building and the continuation of the windows with the floors below. This is just showing the proposed west elevation and the as it is existing. The eastern elevation, same appearance, but with the addition of the main entrance at ground floor level and refuse storage to the rear. The northern elevation would see a new pediment constructed. This is considered to be a previously constructed feature and not an original part of the building. The details provided would show matching materials and detailing with the windows below. Overall, just showing a proposed image of the building here. The design is considered to be appropriate for this locally listed building, deliberately bold and industrial in character, connecting with the building's heritage and ensuring its long-term viable use into the future. The contemporary style has been well executed and ties the old and new together through the overlapping pediment on the north and south elevations, and the bay windows on the southern elevation continuing that more industrial character down through the original part of the building. Whilst certainly changing the appearance of the building, it's considered that its significance would be preserved, as too would the character and appearance of the Castle Road conservation area. It has been highlighted, and you have the comments of the design review panel within the committee report, that the success of this contemporary design is very much dependent on the quality of the materials, the detailing and the finish. The applicant has provided a series of details, as shown on the screen here, demonstrating how this can be achieved, and there are a number of planning conditions seeking precise details of the materials, including samples and architectural and construction drawings showing how the images shown to us can actually be achieved on site. Just as an example, a typical industrial material, but sufficiently finessed to relate appropriately to the more residential nature of the building. In terms of amenity, it's considered that there are adequate separation distances across the public spaces to prevent significant impacts on the occupiers of adjoining properties to the north, the south and the west. To the east, the site is located in close proximity to a number of windows within St George's Court, although a number of these windows serve corridors, as shown by the image here. Where there will be a limited impact from existing windows that exist within the building. Whilst there will be some actual and perceived loss of privacy from some of these windows, weight is given to the fact that Brewery House already is in situ. Those windows are already there, and to avoid the greatest impacts, which are from these windows within the unit at the front and the rear of the building towards habitable room windows within St George's Court, there is a planning condition requiring that these windows be obscure glazed and non-opening. No on-site parking provision is proposed. This image just showing the resident parking zone KB, where the residents of this building will be eligible for parking permits. So as a result of the absence of on-site parking, it's considered there will be a 24 space shortfall. There is some limited capacity within the KB resident parking zone. The information we have is that there are 106 of the 113 permits have been issued. However, given the accessibility of the site, proximity to shops, services and the wide open spaces along the seafront, it's considered that the wider benefits of the proposal, including the provision of dwellings, the affordable housing provision I will come to in a moment, and the reuse of a locally listed building would outweigh the concerns which are not related to highway safety matters. As you've seen from the previous application on the agenda, there is a proposal to relocate the affordable housing element from this development, which is also in the form of a build-to-rent scheme. The requirement would be for 4 on-site spaces, on-site dwellings. The applicant is proposing the provision of 5, so an increase in 1 unit to 56 Arundel Street, which has just been approved on the agenda. The units that are proposed within 56 Arundel Street within a more sustainable location, also larger and include external amenity space in the form of balconies. A planning condition is proposed to ensure that the affordable housing provision is secured on site within this development should the development at Arundel Street not proceed. So overall, it's considered that the proposal represents an interesting and positive form of development that would provide 17 new dwellings and affordable housing provision off-site and would secure the long-term viable use of a locally listed building. It's considered these significant benefits would outweigh limited concerns in respect of parking and residential amenity. Again, you have a detailed report in front of you, and for the reasons set out, the application comes with a recommendation of conditional permission. I will just now read out a written representation received in objection to the proposal. It's from Alicia Denny, Portsmouth City Council Planning Committee, Wednesday the 9th of September. I am making this deputation on behalf of myself and a number of residents in the area around Brewery House. We wish to object to the proposal on these grounds: overdevelopment of the site, lack of parking, loss of rights of light for some neighbours, inappropriate use of century-old building in a conservation area, potential loss of habitat for roosting sites of bats and black-headed gulls. To fit 17 units into this existing space plus an extra unsympathetic story is overdevelopment. 4 units on each of the 2 floors would be more acceptable, but this is an unimaginative use of an interesting historic building. For example, a live and workspace, such as for artists, with a community area for meetings or exhibitions, could have been an option. The design, materials and visual impact of the additional story combine as a jarring modern note to an old bottling store. The Council's own highways engineer states that the proposal will increase parking demand by 23.5 spaces, making it more inconvenient for residents to find a place to park, with the consequent implications for residential amenity, and will result in both instances of vehicles being parked indiscriminately and residents driving around the area hunting for a parking space, with the consequent implications for air quality and pollution. This is in conflict with planning policy and could justify a reason for refusal of this application, although impact is essentially one of residential amenity and air quality rather than one of highway safety or capacity. This should give significant weight in the planning balance when determining this application. It is unrealistic to expect most people of working age to be without access to a vehicle, and there is little employment within walking or cycling distance of the site. The new temporary cycleway in Kings Road will be increasing parking congestion in the area to add to the regular pressures caused by Hambrook Street's nearness to Southsea Common. Existing demand for residence permits already exceeds supply of spaces, a problem which this development will exacerbate. A number of residents in neighbouring properties have lived in them for more than 20 years, such as those in 3 Copper Street and 4 Stone Street. They are among the closest to the development and will lose light, particularly in winter, if the height of the brewery increases. They would claim their rights to light will be lost. They will also suffer an increase in noise and a loss of other environmental amenities in this quiet corner of Southsea. Insufficient regard has been taken to the building being on the local list of heritage buildings and it being an outliner within Castle Road Conservation Area. The fact Burrell House and flats have been built on the opposite side of Hambrook Street is not an acceptable argument for the architecture of Brewery House being spoilt. Notwithstanding the unusual concept of trading affordable homes between this proposed site and that of 56 Arundel Street, whoever lives in the development as proposed is likely to be living in a cramped and claustrophobic setting without any personal outdoor space. This number of additional residents, at least 21 adults and 13 children, in such a building with proposed living space at a minimal level allowed, is likely to have an adverse impact on its neighbours, particularly residents of St George's Court and Copper Street. Although similar conditions exist in other flats in the city, which have been converted from houses, it does not seem right for the local authority to deliberately create such small homes, especially for families. 4 of the flats need to have obscure glazing and non-opening windows because they are so close and are overlooking rooms in St George's Court. Again, this indicates a poor design, seeking to pour a quart into a pint pot without regard for the potential consequences of a more difficult environment than currently for the new occupiers of Brewery House and the present residents of St George's Court, many of whom are elderly or have medical problems. Finally, the City Council's own ecology team state that it is not in full agreement with the authors of the survey saying the building is of negligible ecological value. The flat roof is suitable for nesting gulls species such as black-headed gull, which are protected while breeding. Equally important is the reported presence of roosting bats, and, as legally these cannot be disturbed in winter or summer, a fuller survey and report of how these creatures can be protected should be commissioned. There are so many potential negatives to this proposal as it stands. we request the committee ask officers to reconsider both the principle of housing development within this special building and, if homes are the only feasible option, to remove the additional storey and reduce the number of apartments. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Gary. Can I thank the deputation there as well? Thank you very much for that. Before I go on to questions, I'd just like to say for the people that are listening or watching us, that Peter Abulf, the City Solicitor, is no longer with us, and we welcome Kieran Levin, I think I've pronounced that, who's the Planning Legal Advisor. So Kieran is with us now to make sure that I'm doing everything that I should be doing. So welcome, Kieran. So you're more than welcome.
Can I just confirm that Councillor Hunt joined late? Does he need to declare any interest at all?
Very good point, Kieran. I knew you'd say something. Councillor Hunt, yes, have you got any declarations of any interest at all? Sorry about that, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Hunt, could you switch your microphone and...
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
the screen froze. There, Chairman, for a while. No, I have nothing to declare in the way of interest. Thank you very much, everyone.
And if it wasn't asked of Councillor Smythe, the same question, please.
Chair, I confirm I have nothing, no declarations of interest to make.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Kieran, for that. So now we're going to move over to questions to the office. Yes.
I had requested on behalf of the applicant to make a deputation.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Hugh Mason. Sorry about that. My apologies. So can we go over now then to Councillor Hugh Mason, who would like to do a deputation. Councillor Hugh Mason.
Chairman, once again I'm speaking on behalf of the applicants. We are pleased with the positive recommendation made by officers and the full explanation provided in support of the proposal within the officers' report to committee. The benefits of the scheme before you include, first, efficient reuse of a vacant, locally listed building. Second, the delivery of 17 new high-quality sustainable properties in a popular area of Southsea, just off the busy shopping and leisure hub of Castle Street, it should be Castle Road, with its many bars and restaurants. Third, new housing stock in the city, which is close to local amenities, bus routes, and a short walk from the harbour and central station. Fourth, an affordable housing provision to be provided off-street at Arundel Street. Fifth, a 12-month construction programme providing construction jobs at a time when the Portsmouth economy is in desperate need of support. Sixthly, the private rented properties will be managed by Ravelin Housing, which is developing a corporate social responsibility charter and will ensure that the construction works will support apprenticeships and local labour opportunities. The concerns which have been raised by local residents in their deputation to the committee I will address in turn. Firstly, the principle of the use of the building. The long-term vacant building is not subject to any site-specific policies which would dictate a particular use for it. The application for conversion to residential use must therefore be given consideration on its own merits and in line with national and local planning policies. The principle of conversion to residential has been fully considered in the officer's report. The presumption in favour of sustainable development is applied in accordance with the requirements of paragraph 11 of the NPPF, which is triggered by Portsmouth's lack of a 5-year housing land supply. Importantly, the proposal allows for the repurposing of a vacant historic building for a long-term viable use and provides for much-needed homes to meet the demands of housing within the city, in accordance with policies PCS 10, PCS 21 and PCS 23 of the Portsmouth Plan. Matters of design. The building is attractive as an example of a robust utilitarian bottle store of its age. Inappropriate additions from the 1950s are proposed to be removed, for example the PVC-clad bay windows, and modern insertions placed in lieu to represent the historic nature of the 2 large apertures which originally stood where bridges once were placed, to take bottles from the brewery across the road. The roof form is a folding ridge design, a reference to its industrial heritage, and giving the building a refreshed addition fit for its reinvention as residential use. The existing brickwork and sash windows will be carefully restored, creating a clear language between the authentic existing fabric and the new additions to suit the conversion. This development treats the existing building sympathetically, with excellent design and sustainable construction standards exceeding, where possible, the building regulations, and it will bring a disused building back into meaningful life for years to come. Planning conditions requiring precise construction drawings have been recommended to ensure the high quality of the design is maintained throughout the build process in order to preserve the integrity of the historic fabric of the building. Next, lack of parking. The shortfall in parking provision has been weighed in the planning balance, and the importance of providing homes has been considered in this instance to outweigh the residential amenity issue of not having a parking space directly available for each dwelling. The recognition that there is a short walk and cycle to local amenities and recreational facilities, along with the evidence that there is some capacity within the KV parking zone to accommodate additional parking for future residents, adds to the weight given in favour of a zero parking scheme in this location. Loss of rights of light. Paragraph 530 to 541 of the officer's report fully assesses the potential impact of the layout and positioning of the windows on existing neighbouring dwellings. Where considering necessary, a condition has been recommended to require windows to be obscure glazed and non-opening below 1.7 metres in height to mitigate potential overlooking of neighbouring properties. And then ecological mitigation. Paragraph 5.92 of the officer's report confirms that the mitigation measures proposed within the submitted ecology report are considered acceptable in protecting nesting birds, the potential presence of bats, and ensuring best working practices are adhered to throughout construction. Recommended condition 17 requires the development to be carried out in accordance with the requirements of the report. In response to the favourable report presented by officers, the benefits of additional private rented units being provided within the city, the planning balance applied by officers to the consideration of the application, and the ability for concerns raised by residents where necessary to be addressed by the imposition of condition, it is respectfully requested that the application be supported today. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hugh Mason, for your deputation. Thank you again. Now we're going to move over now to questions from members, which will be directed to the planning officer. So the first person I call upon is Councillor Luke Stubbs, please. Councillor Stubbs.
Thank you, Chairman. Sorry, I was trying to look this up in the report, but I just wanted to ask something about something that's been mentioned in the deputation and addressed by Councillor Mason, but I'd like to put it to the officers as well, about the obscure glazed windows. And could you talk us through that?
Gary, did you want to, or did Ian want to do that? Gary,
no, I'm happy to do that. That's absolutely fine. If you bear me 2 seconds, I'll just go back to my screen. Okay, I'll move through the slides. Okay, so in terms of amenity, the recommendation is that to the north, to the east, the west and the south, the proposal would not have significant adverse impacts on the amenity of adjoining occupiers. The building is located in close proximity to St George's Court, which is a sheltered housing development. There's obviously been some consideration of the presence of Brewery House and the windows within its east-facing elevations when St George's Court was first constructed. And the majority of windows within the west-facing elevation of St George's Court, which is these windows in here, actually serve corridors. So in terms of impact of views out of these windows, there is no significant concerns in terms of loss of privacy within habitable parts of St George's Court. The exception to that is windows located at ground, first and second floor level in this position here, which serve little studio flats, and at the northern extent of the building here. So there's potential impacts on two windows above each other. It's not considered that the impact at ground floor level would be significant on the basis that this space is already a pedestrian environment, and you can already see much closer distances directly into the ground floor windows of all of the windows on St George's Court. So primarily the condition proposed relates to these two windows circled on the plan at first and second floor level, which provides the closest and the more direct views towards those habitable room windows. These rooms also benefit from large bay windows offering views out towards the south and more obscure views, acute views out towards the front of St George's Court. And towards the rear, you also have other windows that serve that same space. So it's not significantly harming the internal living conditions of those flats, but it is protecting the more direct views into St George's Court.
Thank you. Councillor Stubbs, did you want to come back for another question at all?
No, that's very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Lynn Stagg was next. Councillor Stagg, would you mind using the chat, please, rather than the hand facility, because I can see the meeting chat better than your hands. I don't want to miss you. So, Councillor Lynn Stagg, please.
Apologies, Chair. I just wanted to ask: has a back survey been done?
Gary, please, Councillor Stagg.
I confirm it has. It wasn't submitted as part of the original application. That it was missed off the submission documents, and the initial comments provided by the City Council's ecologist was that there was the potential for bat roosts and gulls. Subsequently, an ecology survey has been provided, that has been passed on to the City Council's ecologist, and whilst they disagree with the view that there is negligible value on this site, they are satisfied that there is limited opportunities for bats, and there was no evidence of nesting gulls at that particular time. So in terms of protected species, it's considered that the proposal would not have an impact on those. There are two informative proposed on the recommendation of the City Council's ecologists, just to draw the applicant's attention to that. There's also the planning condition, which seeks to enhance biodiversity value at the site, which seeks the reprovision of bat roosts and boxes for birds, so potentially re-providing them, even though there is no evidence of that actually existing at the moment.
Councillor Stagg, did you want to come back to another question?
That's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The next person I've got is Councillor Matthew Atkins. Councillor Atkins, please.
Thanks, Chair. Just to clarify something then, following up from the question Councillor Stubbs asked, I think one of the deputations, I think Alicia Denny's deputation, said that there would be flats with no windows that weren't obscure glazed. That's not correct, is it? There's a series of flats where one window in the flat will be obscure glazed, but all those rooms have other windows, do they?
Gary, did you want to answer that?
That is correct. So there are four flats that are affected by the obscure glazed planning condition, two on first floor, two on second floor level. The rooms in which those obscure glazed windows would be located have a total of 3 windows, so it is one of the 3 windows to that room.
Councillor Atkins, did you want to come back at all?
Not on that issue, though. I do have a couple of other questions, if you don't mind.
Yes, of course, Councillor.
The next question is the highways engineer, and I didn't feel this was quite fully responded to in the report, but the highways engineer, his comment says that the lack of parking here could actually be potentially a reason for refusal, because we are talking about a need for 23 spaces in an area where there's only 7 spaces left in the parking zone, and the assumption, according to the highways officer, that these occupants will make the choice not to have cars is not necessarily a reliable one. isn't that a fair comment in this area of the city, that it's actually quite unlikely the occupants of these flats will choose not to have cars? This is a car-owning area of the city, isn't it? That it's quite likely this is going to have quite a substantial parking amenity impact.
Okay. Sorry, I'm just trying to get my head that sort of the question. Is that okay?
I'm kind of saying, isn't it the case, as the highway officer appears to say, that this will have quite a substantial parking amenity impact? And he seems to suggest that might be useful. And I just wanted to hear the planning officer comment on that further.
Okay, thank you, Gary.
Okay, so the Highways Authority have provided comments in which have had regard to the parking standards supplementary planning document, which sets out what the expected parking demand and the level of provision should be within new residential developments within different parts of the city. Within the most highly accessible areas of the city, there is expectation that the parking provision will be lower than set out within that document, and the Highways Authority are highlighting here that this is not located within one of the areas identified within the supplementary planning document where we would expect a reduction in parking provision. So looking at it purely on a highways point of view, he has made a recommendation, or the local highways have made a recommendation. Yes, there will be an impact. I agree that it isn't likely that there will be no one living in this building that may wish to own a vehicle, but I also believe that it is located in an accessible part of the city. It's close to shops, it's close to services, it's close to the seafront. So there are opportunities to reside in this building without the need to own a vehicle. The difference here is that you have to make a judgment weighing all of the benefits of this development, and the recommendation that's been put to you is that it acknowledges that it does not meet the residential parking standards, but there are significant benefits that do come out of this scheme. The most significant is finding a long-term viable use for a large locally listed building within a conservation area, and the provision of housing towards the City Council's housing need.
Councillor Atkins.
My last question was finally about the roof, and you do deal in a good amount of detail with the appearance of the new roof section, where you say that it is a new feature that will potentially divide opinion in some cases. Were alternative options considered that might have been a little less intrusive in a conservation area? It does seem to me this is quite a drastic change to a listed building in a conservation area, to put particularly a black metal extra story on a building. Were other materials considered, other colours that might have been more in keeping with conservation in the area?
Okay, yeah, if you bear with me, it might be useful just to have the slide back on the screen, so I'll just go back to that. Okay.
That's great.
Thank you. We'll call you in, Councillor, when we need to.
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
So
I'm happy to accept dark grey metal as an assessment.
Okay. So the scheme that's been presented to us, it's not the role of a local planning authority to design a scheme for the applicant, but through the course of pre-application discussions, we did discuss alternatives. We did discuss the fact that it was a very bold solution, and from that we needed to make sure that the detailing was of the highest quality. What we did do is we asked the applicant to play with the valleys and the pitches of the roof, and have a look, see whether it would work better with a lower proportion, the lower section of the building terminating the northern and southern elevations of the building, and from that it did look as though the roof was then apologetic, which kind of removed some of the concept from being very bold and not being apologetic. It needed to be higher than the pediment, which kind of links back into it. So in terms of other
you just go back.
Sorry. Am I back now?
Yep. Sorry.
Yeah, we lost hearing. We lost sound.
You were just about to address materials.
Yeah, so we've not considered materials. Apologies, I'm not sure where you lost me there. So we didn't consider materials, but we did consider alternative forms of the roof terminating with lower elements to the north and southern elevation of the building. And our view was that what was presented was the most appropriate of this particular concept that was submitted for consideration.
Any more questions, Councillor Atkins? No?
No,
okay.
Thank you.
If you think of one, just let me know. Councillor Chris Atwell, please. Councillor Chris Atwell, questions, please.
Thank you, Chair. I just wonder whether any conversations have been had with the university about the use of Burrell House for parking.
Sorry, did you get that, Gary?
Yeah, it's fine. As far as I'm aware, no conversations have not taken place. The application has been considered without any parking provision provided within Burrell House. It was noted at the time of the site visit when we discussed the proposal with the applicants that there were a number of spaces available below Burrell House, and that's something that they're free to go away and explore, but it's not a requirement of this application to provide parking off-site at Burrell House.
Councillor Atwell, any more questions? Thank you very much, Councillor. Councillor Judith Smythe, please. Councillor Judith Smythe.
I just wanted to follow up on the question that's just been asked about the roof. Am I right in understanding that the particular configuration, which is included in the application, allows for solar panels and other thermally efficient things up on that roof?
Gary?
The proposal does include solar PVs within the valleys and the south-facing roof slopes. There are conditions relating to that and their appearance of trying to maintain that very clean, crisp external view of that particular roof feature. I don't know that there may have been alternative forms of roof that could have equally provided south-facing roof slopes for solar PV, but that is a scheme we have in front of us, and yes, the valleys are there and are made use of by providing solar.
Thank you. Any more questions, Councillor Judith? No, thank you very much. So I don't think there's Councillor Lee Hunt, just to remind you to use the chat if you can, Councillor Hunt. Councillor Hunt, please, a question to the officers.
First of all, apologies to Councillor Atkins. I didn't realise my mic was on by expressing my little thinking there, so apologies about that. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, the chat isn't working for me.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
So, but I would like to make a comment when it
Yes, of course. No questions,
no questions
at the moment?
No.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So now we're going to, we've done questions, members. Now we want to move on to members' comments, please. Councillor Lee Hunt, please. Comments, please.
Thank you, everyone. We all know we're under pressure to do new homes in the city, and sometimes we see some pretty awful applications. I've been around this a long time. I can see how much thought and consideration has gone into this building, notwithstanding some of the concerns that were put earlier by Alicia Denny. She raised issues which would have caused problems for me, but they have been looked at and addressed by the officer today in his remarks. And the truth is that there isn't any evidence of an adverse impact on the ecology around gulls and bats. We've heard some evidence about that, and we have to be driven by the evidence. But what we have heard is it's going to be bat boxes and bird boxes going in. So the probability is that the ecology will be enhanced. So for me, that's a big issue, and I'm satisfied on that. On the look of the building, I suppose these things are down to personal taste. I really like it. It's a warehouse type look. It's got that, to me at least, it's an exciting look compared to some of the things that we've done in conservation areas elsewhere, particularly along the seafront, where you see some of these things atop some of the conserved buildings, very strange looking lean-to type things. I think that this relates really well to the building that it is and reflects what the building has been in the past, but at the same time allows us to deliver these additional homes. I know I get ribbed for saying it, but the government is asking us to do this, and we are a crowded city, and I always listen very carefully to, especially to all of my colleagues, and to Councillor Atkins when he makes these comments about parking and so on. I too have those concerns, and I used to have in the past an awful lot more. But the trouble is, we really aren't going to reuse these buildings if we allow ourselves to be completely restrained about the car parking use. It's very convenient when, for political reasons, perhaps you want to throw something out to look good and be sounding great locally, and that sometimes happens, we know that. But on this occasion, it's a really smart looking building, and people are going to want to live there. So the officers covered almost everything in conditions. So I'm very pleased with the report. I'd like to thank the officers for this and the previous application, with a lot of work went into that as well. So I would like to move the officers' recommendations with all the conditions, etc. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. We've got a proposal there from Councillor Lee Hunt to go with the officer's recommendation for approval. So next person is Councillor Terry Norton. Councillor Norton, please, for comments.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I think I shadow the view of the deputies here. This is yet another Portsmouth City Council application without parking. And this is further from transport. I don't think it's as accessible as the previous application. And therefore, I think there are probably grounds for refusal on lack of amenity here. What are we talking about? We're talking about 7 unused spaces in a residence parking zone for a potential 23 cars there, so anyone can do the maths on that. I agree with what Councillor Hunt says when he talks about the city's need to provide housing, but we also have a need to tackle the parking crisis. And again, another application with that doesn't address that, I don't think it is good enough. It feels like we're putting the housing need ahead of our parking need. In addition to that, I'm not too convinced by the roof. I don't think I like the roof, to shadow Councillor Atkins' comments there, and I think there are probably some strong grounds there for refusal on conservation grounds. The concerns that I had about the frosted windows have been answered, but again, I think I'm probably happy to propose refusal based on the lack of amenity and conservation grounds.
Okay, thank you very much, Councillor. So we've got a proposal there for refusal, but we'll still carry on with what we've got on the table so far. So, Councillor Chris Atwell, please, a comment, please.
Thank you, Chair. I think it's important to breathe life into a building like Brewery House. The attention to detail is, I think, good. Good quality materials are going to be used. I desperately want fewer cars on the road, so I don't have an enormous problem about parking. It'd be interesting to explore the idea of perhaps having a conversation with the university about Burrell House. And I am aware of some reservations from some local residents, and I think that's probably only to be expected in these situations. It's my observation that no local residents have felt moved to submit a deputation in respect of this application, and I certainly haven't received anything from anybody who lives within the area. So that's my comment, and I'd be more than happy to second Councillor Hunt's proposal.
Okay, so we've got a proposal, Councillor Lee Hunt, to agree, and seconded by Councillor Chris Atwell. Second that. Okay, thank you very much. Another comment then from Councillor Matthew. Sorry, I jumped there. Councillor Claire Oudie, please. A comment, please.
Thank you. As with the other application, obviously I'm concerned about the lack of family housing again, and it's in the middle of what was a council estate, I suppose, but I would imagine that quite a lot of the properties have been bought under right to buy in recent years, because it's a very, very desirable area of Portsmouth. I do share some concerns with parking. Like, I do agree the transport situation, you're about 5 minutes from a really good bus stop, really, so I can't complain too much, but I would worry about people bringing in cars because it is Southsea after all, and people just do bring in cars to that point. I would say I would agree with the deputy's version of maybe having this building as a gallery or something similar. I absolutely love the architectural design of this building. It's quite similar to a lot of buildings in London. There's a few I've seen when I was in London a few weeks ago. It's kind of like they're taking an old building and it's not just a pastiche anymore just to make it up what it used to look like. They're just taking it and adding a contemporary feel, especially with the industrialness of the roof. And I think if done properly by the pictures, I think it will look absolutely bloody fantastic, and it'll be a really good place. But I don't know if I really want it as flats. I would love it as a gallery, especially in the Castle Road cultural area where we've got good shops and we have a festival, hopefully again next year, the Castle Road Festival. And so I'm really on the fence about it because I feel like we could refuse, but can the council? Well, Ravelin could probably appeal their own decision at that point, our decision, which is complicated. So I'm not going to really make too much comment. I'm still going to mull over it for the next few minutes because someone else has got a comment. But I do want to say that building may be meant for something else, but looks fantastic. You should keep it the way it looks on the application there. Cool.
Thank you very much, Councillor Udi. We've got Councillor Matthew Atkins, please. Councillor Atkins, your comments, please.
Thanks, Chair. I think I'm going to second Councillor Norton's recommendation for refusal just so that it can be properly voted on. I think I also I'm leaning towards refusal on the same grounds. I don't think it's acceptable for Portsmouth City Council to keep putting forward applications, and I've said this before at Planning Committee, with no parking provision and no way of dealing with the fact they're in locations with a parking problem. In locations where there isn't necessarily a parking problem and other good access, and in the centre of the commercial districts, I'll accept a lack of parking. But I think in the more residential areas, some consideration has to be given to parking issues in the area. So I support refusal on the grounds of negative effect on amenity, particularly parking. I do also think that the design is not sympathetic enough to the conservation area. I think it is too drastic and new a change. I also particularly am thinking of the future as corrugated iron rusts and can become unpleasant to look at, and I don't think that extra level addition is sympathetic design or good enough design in a conservation area or maintains the kind of historical attributes of the building in the right way. I do think it's possible to add another floor, though that then contributes to the kind of amenity problem of the intensification that deputies were discussing. But I think the design of the extra floor is too drastic a change from the current conservation area. So I'm going to second Councillor Norton's recommendation of refusal on parking grounds and on the grounds of the design not being in keeping with the conservation area.
Thank you very much, Councillor, for that. So we've got one for it and one against so far. So we're still on comments, which I think we need to listen to every comment first of all before we go to the vote. So we've now got Councillor Judith Smythe, please. Councillor Judith Smythe.
Thank you, Chair. I really like this design, and I like what's being done, and I think we need flats down there. I had a walk around there recently, and the building is really sort of letting the area down at the moment. So it'd be good to have something like this done with it. I like the roof, the statement that's being made. And I think that the question of parking is an interesting one. Lots of the young people who may want to live there don't have cars nowadays. My son living in London doesn't have a car and doesn't expect to. We need to reduce the total number of cars here. And also, it isn't the case that every single body person is using their parking space for which they have a permit every single day of the week. So there'll be a natural churn, and it's pretty near the seafront as well for parking. So I will be voting for this.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Just a couple of comments from myself. I like the application, I must say. I think it looks really good. I can understand the concerns, but I personally like the whole application. So I think everybody knows which way I'm going to go. So anybody else for any more comments before we go to the vote? Councillor Lynn Stagg, please. Councillor Stagg.
I did what you said, Chair, and I put my request in the meeting chat, but you obviously can't see
Sorry,
it.
I couldn't see it, Councillor. Sorry.
I have concerns about the parking. I checked out the parking spaces. There are 113 spaces in the residence parking zone. Currently, there are 103 permits out. But if everybody did take out a permit, that means you've got no spaces left over. And if you look at the parking standards, you could get a total of 23.5 parking requests, or parking requests for 23.5 spaces, and that means you've got 23 cars going around on very narrow roads, because they are very narrow around there, looking for parking spaces and causing a problem. I appreciate that the need for housing is great, and I appreciate that building has been lying sort of disused for years, and it is a blight on the landscape. And I honestly am not sure which way to vote, because I approve of the building and what it's being used for. I don't approve of the lack of parking. There's nowhere else to put the parking because there's no room there. So I'm torn, so I might well abstain.
Thank you very much, Councillor. Any other comments from anybody else before I move on to the vote? No? Okay then, so just to make sure, Kieran, that I've got this correct, so we're voting on motion 1, which is the officer's recommendations for approval. So we've got a motion in front of us on the table proposed by Councillor Lee Hunt that we grant planning permission in accordance with the officer's recommendation, subject to any amendments or supplementary sheets. So the motion was seconded by Councillor Chris Atwell. I'll just check if the planning officer has any additional comments before we go to the vote at all. No? Okay, I'm getting a no from that. So basically, I will ask each member in turn if they are voting for or against the motion, or if they wish to abstain. Please only state for, against or abstain, just so that we've got it very clear. So please state for, against or abstain, and we're voting at the moment for the planning permission for the officer's recommendation. Is that correct, Kieran, first of all? Yep.
Yes, the first motion will be to consider the grant in favour in line with the officer's report. The second motion, if this motion were to fail, would be the refusal motion, and I would like a little bit more clarity about the reasons for refusal if we get onto that point, but we'll take that bridge later.
Yes, that's absolutely fine. Just 1 second, we've got a lot of phones going off here, so I'm just not sure someone can sort the phones out before I go to the vote. 1 second. Lovely, thank you very much. So I now call upon Councillor Judith Smythe. Please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For the motion, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Matthew Atkins, please state if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
Against.
Against, thank you. I call upon Councillor Chris Atwell. Please state if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For the motion, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Hunt, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Donna Jones, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Terry Norton, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
Against.
Councillor Lynn Stagg, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
Abstain.
Abstain, thank you. Councillor Luke Stubbs, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Claire Oudie, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Thank you. I now cast my vote as chair, and I'm going for the recommendation for approval, please. So could I hand over to Democratic Services to work that out for us, please?
Right, Chair, I've got 7 for the motion, 2 against and 1 abstainer.
So that has been carried then. So thank you very much. So now we move on to the next item, which is the planning officer, Summer Sharp, will now present the third application, and this is to number 69 Stanley Avenue. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just starting the presentation. Can everyone see everything? Perfect. So this is an application for a single-storey rear extension. This is the location plan showing the context of the application site. As you can see, the existing dwelling has a staggered rear extension, which is proposed to be demolished and rebuilt as a larger extension spanning the width of the whole rear elevation. This is what the rear elevation will look like, existing and proposed. Pictures from the site visit. Proposed and existing side elevations. So the application is recommended for approval.
Sorry.
Yes, it's finished.
Okay, thank you. I don't want to cut you short. Okay, yeah, it was very quick, wasn't it? I wish they were all like that, Councillor. Okay, then. So we've heard from Summer, and we're asking members if you have any questions to the officer. So any questions? I'm just having a quick look. She caught me by surprise, actually. Have we got anybody at all? Sorry, Councillor Atkins, first of all, please, and then Councillor Hunt. Councillor Atkins, please.
Is it correct that where there's not a member of council staff, this wouldn't come before the committee at all? It would normally be permitted development?
It would not have come before committee had it not been an applicant. It would still have required planning permission.
Thank you very much. Any more questions, Councillor Atkins, please, to that follow-up, or you're happy for me to carry on? No? Okay, go on to Councillor Lee Hunt, please. A question.
Well, it was so quick, I didn't see any elevations. I'm sorry about it. Can we just make sure we do it properly and see the elevations, if there were any?
Okay, Councillor, we just asked Summer would you just show Councillor Hunt that and just possibly go over it a little bit again, just so he's fully aware?
Okay, elevations should be shown. Rear elevations, can you see those okay?
Thank you.
And this is the rear elevation of the property and the existing and proposed side elevations.
Councillor Hunt, did you want to say anything else?
No, that's great, thank you.
No? Okay, does anybody else want to say anything? No? No more questions? Okay, so we're going to, sorry, was that Councillor Donna Jones who wanted to ask a question?
Comment, please, Chair.
Sorry. Okay, so Councillor Donna Jones, then you were first in for a comment, please. Councillor Donna Jones.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'd like to propose the officer's recommendation.
Very quick.
Seconded.
So, Councillor Lee Hunt to second that. That's fine. Okay. Any more comments at all from anybody? No. Okay then. And the motion was seconded. Oh, sorry.
We lost you for a few seconds, but you've come back again now.
Sorry. I'll start again. I was doing so well, wasn't I? So we have a motion on the table proposed by Councillor Donna Jones that we grant permission in accordance with the officer's recommendations, subject to any amendments or supplementary sheet. The motion was seconded by Councillor Lee Hunt. Thank you for that. So I'll just clarify if the planning officer has any additional comments before we go to the vote. They're saying no to me. So could the proposer and seconder, just if you want to say anything else, or you're quite happy for me to carry on, that's fine. Okay. I'll now go to the vote, and the usual thing is to ask you if you're for or against, or do you abstain. So Councillor Judith Smart, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
I'm for the motion, Chair.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Matthew Atkins. Please indicate for, against, or abstain, Councillor.
For the motion.
Thank you. Councillor Atwell, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
For the motion, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Hunt, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Donna Jones, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
For.
Councillor Terry Norton, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
Yeah, for.
Thank you. I call upon Councillor Lynn Stagg, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Luke Stubbs, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Claire Oudie, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain.
For.
I now cast my vote, and I'm for the for the motion in front of me with the recommendation from the officers. So I think that is unanimous. Is that correct? I'll just double check that.
That is correct. There's 10 votes for the motion.
So that has been carried. Thank you very much, members. Everybody okay for us to go on to the last application? Nobody needs a break or anything? Okay then. So we now move on to the last application for this afternoon, and the planning officer again is Summer Sharp, who will present the fourth application. It's the last one tonight, and it's today. It's the number 29 Marine Court. Over to you, Summer.
Thank you, Chair. Whilst my presentation is just loading, I would like to draw your attention to the supplementary matters. I received 3 further representations. 1 was in support, 2 further objections. These did not discuss any new matters, and the recommendation remains unchanged. So this is the application site located within the corner of Marine Court. As you can see from the existing and proposed floor plans, there is an existing single-storey side extension. The proposal would extend this and towards the rear elevation and also at first floor level. The existing and proposed side elevation is as shown. The side elevation here shows that the proposed extension would seek to reflect the design of the host dwelling in terms of its roof form and mansard roof. These are the site visit pictures. This is the rear elevation of the proposed and existing extension. Further site visit pictures. This is also a recent passing of the site, which shows that there has been a new boundary treatment, which also screens the proposal. The recommendation is for approval, and I would welcome any questions.
Thank you very much. Do we need to read no deputations?
No.
No. Okay. Thank you very much. So now we'll move on to questions from members, please. Any members would like to ask any questions? Councillor Donna Jones.
I'd like to make a comment, but no questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor. So no questions for officers. So Councillor Donna Jones then for comments then, please.
Just the same as before, Chair, just to clarify, if members of the public watching, this is obviously a member of staff, so I'd like to, not for that reason, because I have no objection, but the reason it's here is obviously because it's a member of staff, propose the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Seconded.
Thank you very much. We've had one councillor there, and Councillor. Okay, thank you very much, Councillor Hunt for that. I know you haven't got your chat facility, so I know you can't put your hand up, so that's fine. Councillor Terry Norton, please. You've got a comment there at all, sir?
Yeah, no, Councillor Hunt's already done it. It was just a second, really, just to say it's a small private community. I think it would be a good addition there. No issue with it, and thank you to Summer for 2 very quick, clear introductions there. So brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So no more comments from anybody. If that's okay, I'm going to move on to the officer's recommendation for approval. So we have a motion on the table, and that was proposed by Councillor Donna Jones that we grant permission in accordance with the officer's recommendation, subject to the amendments. This was seconded by Councillor Lee Hunt. I'd just like to ask the planning officer if they've got any comments or anything to it. They're all saying no to me, so it looks as though we can go ahead. So I'll now go to the vote. I'll ask each member if go to the vote, if you'd say for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain? So Councillor Judith Smythe, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Matthew Atkins, do you wish to vote for or against? Chair. Thank you very much. Councillor Chris Atwell, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Lee Hunt, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Donna Jones, please indicate if you are for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Terry Norton, please indicate if you're for or against, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Lynn Stagg, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Luke Stubbs, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Councillor Claire Rudy, please indicate if you're for or against the motion, or do you wish to abstain?
For.
Okay, and it's just down to me, so I'm going for the motion in front of me. So I think we can add that one up, but just for clarity, could you tell us the scores?
Yeah, the Chair, there's 10 votes for the motion.
So that has been carried. So can I thank everybody for this afternoon? Can I thank all members? Can I thank officers for all their hard work as well? Sorry about the IT problems, please, councillors. I'm sorry about that. And I look forward to you all at the next council meeting. And Councillor Donna Jones, please put that email to me, please, and
already done
I'll
it.
give you a reason. Thank you very much. Take care, everybody, and have a fantastic afternoon. God bless.
Right, Chair, I'll just
Chair.
close the live stream, let you know when it's
sorry.
finished.
Yeah, no problem.
Judith Smythe, entering by telephone. Please admit me.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Is now exiting.